Okay, can we, we're going to get started. Can we all please rise for the pledge and stay standing for a moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a moment of silence for our first responders and those military deployed. Thank you. And the mayor has, we're going to start out with a little piece of good news tonight. So the mayor has a piece of good news, so I'm going to turn it over to him for just a couple minutes.
I have several pieces of good news tonight. First of all, I would like to present council on during our parade. Kristen Phillips Hill and Kate Klunk were here. So I have a citation from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania House of Representatives congratulating us on 150 years. I also have a citation from Kristen Phillips Hill from the Senate as congratulations for 150 years. Our parade was the other Saturday, and that was 150 years from our incorporation. So we definitely appreciate these. We're going to put them in a very conspicuous spot, probably up here, so we have it. Also, I was at the PSAB convention last week, and before I went, but unbeknownst to us, we got another citation, or award of recognition from PSAB, Pennsylvania, State Association of Boroughs. Okay. And it says New Freedom Borough on the occasion of the 150th anniversary as a borough in the county of York, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. PSAB extends best wishes for continued success and a prosperous future. And that is dated May 20th, 2023, our date of incorporation. So we're very grateful to be recognized there. Also, I got a big surprise when I went there. I had put in some time ago.
Let's get a round of applause for 3 citations.
Yeah. Also, I had sent in some time ago on behalf of the borough, and we came in first place under the Pennsylvania Borough News. The association has recognized us as first place in the website category. That does not go to anybody here except for Andrew. Then I was surprised because as soon as I sat down, they called my name again. So this one is recognizing New Freedom Borough in the newsletter category, second place. Thank you. Great job. Seriously. On both of those. A lot of work involved. We appreciate it.
Okay, that was really good news to start with. That's a good. So, public comment for visitors. First up is Felicia Deli.
Felicia isn't here tonight. I'm here on her behalf. My name is Ben Tinkle, and I'm a transportation planner with the York County Planning Commission, and I'm here to talk to you about the 2025 Transportation Improvement Program. Okay, so quickly, what we'll talk about is who we are and what we do, what is the TIP, what you can expect, and your opportunities for input. We're visiting all 72 municipalities this summer. Okay, so our mission at the York County Planning Commission is to guide sustainable development and preservation and to improve the quality of life in York County. We were established in 1959, and that's been our mission ever since. The Planning Commission is made up of 9 different departments, including community development, long-range planning, municipal planning, and the transportation department that I'm representing, which focuses on the movement of people and goods. So the transportation department facilitates the York Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, which consists of the coordinating committee, which worries about fiscal and oversight. They make all the final decisions. There's also the technical committee, which reviews and comments on specific details of projects and helps develop the TIP. Andrew here is a member of our technical committee, and he represents all boroughs of York County on the technical committee. We have other committees such as the Transit Committee, Freight Advisory Committee, and Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. So some of our core transportation planning documents are our long-range transportation plan, which was adopted in 2021, down to the Transportation Improvement Program, which is updated every 2 years, which has a 4-year window. The long-range transportation plan has a 10-year window. The Transportation Improvement Program is fiscally constrained, meaning every project goes down to the exact dollar amount of how much the project is going to cost. Some other documents that we produce in the Transportation Department is the Congestion Management Process, the I-83 Traffic and Conditions Report, safety project evaluations, and a few more you can see on your slide. All these are found on our website, ycpc.org. Okay, so moving on to what is the TIP. The current 2023 TIP has 116 projects over the next 4 years, totaling $192 million of investment in York County. Some of the project types are road maintenance, bridge maintenance, safety improvements, biking and walking infrastructure, and congestion reduction. We refer to road maintenance and bridge maintenance as asset management. So some of the TIP funding programs is asset management, safety, congestion, air quality, walking and biking, and transit. Those are the different funding categories that flow into York, and some of these funds are specific to different types of projects. For example, the Highway Safety Improvement Program funding is only available for safety projects, but some of the other funding sources, such as the surface transportation programs, are available for a wider range of projects. All of it is based on selection criteria and is formula driven. So on the next slide with the graph, you can see that over $202 million is on the 2025 TIP. And the majority of that is in road maintenance and flexible funds, and next highest is the bridge maintenance category. But we want to be real about what you should expect on the TIP. So if you look at the next graph with the yellow bars, that shows how much has already been allocated. So for example, bridges take 4 to 6 years from engineering until they're finally open. So that's an example of a carryover project that we know the project is going to be taking more than 4 years. So we have to allocate the money on the next TIPs. So there's about $48 million available for new projects on the 2025 TIP. And that's over a 4-year period, so if you do the math, that's about $12 million per year available for new projects. So some of the drawbacks from using the TIP is that our state and federal money on the TIP is that it has a longer timeline and a higher cost because of additional regulations and requirements. But the projects are usually always larger than something the borough can take on itself, so that's an advantage to using money from the TIP. So looking at the timeline, we're visiting all 72 municipalities in York County this summer. In the fall, PennDOT will meet with the municipalities that have candidate projects, and at the end of the year, YAMPA will have a draft, fiscally constrained TIP. By spring of '24, we'll hold a formal public review and comment period for the TIP. By the end of June, YAMPA will have a final approved and adopted TIP for 2025 to 2028. So your role as the municipality is to take inventory of your assets and their condition, to identify areas of concern for safety, congestion, sidewalks or trails, or et cetera, and to prioritize and record in your planning documents, such as your comp plan, your official map, or even a resolution. And then most importantly is to connect with us at the YCPC and share your project ideas so we can get them on the TIP. And if they can't be placed on the 2025 TIF, we might be able to do it on the next one in 2027. So, we still want you to contact with us. So that leads me to my last slide, which is all of our contact information. I'm Ben Dinkel, the planner, and our phone number and email address is available. So if you have any questions or project ideas, that's how you'll get a hold of us. So I know that was quick, but if you have any questions or off the bat, I might be able to answer them for you. Sure, go ahead.
Is Queen Street on there?
Queen Street?
Yeah.
Like in York City, you mean?
Yeah.
I think so, there has been some work there, or do you mean like the bridge over 83? Yeah, okay, so that being an emergency where it was struck by a truck, that's actually not on the tip, that's getting state emergency funds, but that is something that PennDOT is working on and has money set aside. I think later this summer, they're gonna start a real project to fix that bridge totally. But yeah, so I'm not exactly sure when that's gonna start, but I think sometime this summer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but obviously we're all looking in the news about the bridge on 95.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're probably not directly involved in that.
Right, yeah, so that's a different.
We need,
sorry.
yeah, but I guess, I mean, we have road structures around here, and how do we make sure that everything is safe? Well, I guess you are on this committee, so you would probably do that, but.
Yeah, so I mean, that was, an accident, where the oil truck or gas truck overturned on a ramp underneath the, underneath the highway and then caught fire. Something similar happened up in Harrisburg in 2013 at like the 322 and I-81 interchange, and they had to rebuild a bunch of ramps up there. So I know the federal government has money set aside for emergencies like this, and but in trying to prevent something like that from happening, we do bridge inspections often, depending on the age of the bridge, it gets inspected more often. That bridge in Philly was only like 4 years old, so that one probably wasn't inspected all that often, but some of our older bridges, around the boroughs and townships, they might get inspected up to every 6 months if they're in bad condition. So it is something that we try to keep on top of, but, we can't really help driver error when he was going too fast around the turn and rolled over and caught fire, so.
Yeah. I guess it really does show what fire can do.
Yeah, especially with those hazardous materials that it was hauling, yeah. Yeah, and that's a different PennDOT engineering district than us in central PA, so even our connections up at PennDOT, they would have to go up to central office to get more information about that project, so. But yeah, that is a good question though. It's definitely been in the news a lot.
And how long have you been in existence?
The Planning Commission, was founded in 59, and then the Yampo originally started as just like the York urbanized area. It wasn't the entirety of York County. And then sometime a few decades ago, I'm not really sure if it was the 70s, where it became the whole county, became all of Yampo. So that is a good question. I wish I did know off the top of my head, but it wasn't back in the 50s. I think it was the 70s or 80s maybe when the whole county became part of the MPO.
Did they help us with the Singer Road Bridge? Or was that all done by
That
the
was all
state?
county and state.
County and state, okay.
Yeah, we do keep some data on the county bridges and the county themselves, not the planning commission, they have a contract with an engineer, HRG, and they do all the inspections and they know all about the bridges, and they do all the work with replacing and repairing and updating the bridges, everything down to like detour routes if it has to be closed.
Yeah, because that was a mess.
Yeah.
We were down for what, a year?
Yeah, that's not that unusual for a timeline for a bridge replacement.
It was considered to be what, not antique, but
Historic.
It's historic, yeah.
There was the water issue too.
we did a great job.
Yeah.
The water issue kind of added to the timeline too, so.
Yeah, the creeks tend to shift and then they can scour the support of the bridge, and then that could be a real problem, when it loses its structural integrity like that. Are there any other questions
Anything
from
else?
the council?
Anything from the audience? Oh, go ahead.
Quick question, is the county PennDOT office gonna do any better with road maintenance in this area?
I would like to say yes, but a real problem that PennDOT has been facing is decreased income because they get a lot of their money through gas tax. And with more fuel efficient cars and more electric cars, they're not generating as much revenue as they had in the past. So that is a real problem, and that's why our road conditions have deteriorated over the years, is simply because PennDOT isn't getting as much money as they used to. So I would like to say that they all, would focus more, on your roads, but the reality is that the money's not there.
Legislation for EV cars, is that gonna?
Senator
Yeah,
Senator
yeah.
Rothman introduced that, where it's gonna be a
Yeah.
$290 charge per EV.
Yeah, per year.
Yeah, that's the, they'd like-
Based on how many miles?
No, it's just a flat.
Yeah, it's a flat out
Well,
registration
there's probably
fee.
12 of them out there, the ones I saw.
Yeah, so that's another method that PennDOT wants to use to generate, money for the roads, yeah, because the EVs aren't paying any gas tax, yeah. They're basically using the roads for free right now, only paying their little registration that's like $40 a year. So
Yeah, a
it's-
couple of bucks. They were
Yeah.
talking about adding
Yeah.
mileage to the
Yeah,
registration.
yeah, the mileage-based user fees, yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that PennDOT wants to roll out, for everybody, but it takes legislation, willpower, and I don't think any of the legislators are willing to take that on, so.
You lose all the emissions inspections too. so.
Yeah, that too, the emissions, yeah, good point. All right, any other questions or comments from the public? All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Sesquicentennial Committee,
We don't really have a lot to
you could come
report.
up. You want to stay back there?
I just wanted to report, we had both events, they went off, they were pretty heavily attended. People thanked the borough for taking the time to acknowledge the history. Some money things, the borough allotted us $5,000 budget. We raised an additional almost $8,000. We did not spend near that money. We talked to the donors, and they agreed, and we donated some of the money back to other events in the community. We gave some to the Lions Club, we gave them $1,500 for the fireworks, $1,000 to Smoke on the Rail. We donated money for Andrew to provide a luncheon from us for the Borough Public Works, all of the staff. And with the balance, which is roughly $6,000, we are hoping we can replace the Marge Goodfellow sign at the park. We are here for your permission to plan something. I have it on good authority from York Buildings that they will help offset the cost. And we have lots of people that have volunteered labor and time, supplies. So, can we replace the sign?
And that would have a sesquicentennial,
Yeah, I mean, it would say Marge Goodfellow or whatever, and then on the back maybe donated by with a plaque and the sesquicentennial dates. I mean, obviously for design and stuff, we have a long way to go, but we were kind of thinking to mimic the borough sign, but maybe with stone instead of brick. And then maybe redo the little garden where the flags are down there.
probably should authorize them to go ahead with the design.
I mean, before I start asking for a lot of favors, I just wanted to get approval that we could.
Yeah, I think, I guess I would entertain a motion to replace the Marge Goodfellow Park sign using the sesquicentennial fundraiser money that they've collected and allow them to go ahead and proceed with the design phase of it.
So moved.
Discussion?
What was the expenses that you did use?
We purchased balloons, the banners, the porta pots, some food items. We bought desserts, drinks, paper products. We rented a photo booth for the prom. That was a really big hit, and she gave us a good price. The DJ.
Were you
the band.
starting out with 13,000?
The band, Troy,
Oh yeah, the band at the park.
that was a big year.
There should be like a list of receipts. We turned in a bunch of receipts. So honestly, we didn't spend that much money because of the money that we spent. 25 went back to donations to other events in the community.
2,500?
Mm-hmm. Plus the luncheon, yeah.
$25 for selection, and then you have 6,000 left for the sign.
Mhm.
All right.
People really came through, like, we're gonna spend more money on decorations, but people just volunteered to help us make ends.
Aunt Marge, a good fellow, would approve.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
How was the prom attended?
It was good. We sold 90 couple tickets at the end. Some people came late, which was fine, but I think they had a good time.
It's a nice event.
Yeah.
Jenny, could I say, I would like to thank the people that came, that at the end,
Oh, that was awesome.
they actually helped put things away and clean
Yeah.
up.
Literally, like every person stayed. We cleaned up all the. I mean, it was amazing. We had that place cleaned up in like 15 minutes.
20
It was
minutes.
awesome.
15, 20 minutes, it was done. You know, people in gowns were saying, "Where's the broom?"
Right. They took their shoes off, and they were picking up, like, we had balloons that had like big pieces of confetti, and they were hand picking them up because we couldn't find a dust mop, Andrew. We need to get a dust mop up there, or a dust pan.
You want a smaller one?
We could. Did you find a dust pan?
Yeah, we had the big one.
Well, why were we using our hands?
I don't know. Or, the dust mop doesn't really pick up flat.
It doesn't, but then like
things
we were
anyway.
literally scooping
Yeah.
with like our hands and cardboard to get the little piece, not little, they were like this big.
Yeah, anything flat though just kind of sticks
Yeah,
to the
what's the
floor, some static electricity or something. Anyway, back to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
Thank you. I think we're also hoping that council members Burek and Ross can take the following back to rec for us. Collectively, our committee, along with borough staff, council members, and other volunteers, have over 100 hours of time in the various sesquicentennial events for New Freedom. We expected some level of support from our community rec council. Instead, appointed rec council member Garvey made derogatory and disparaging remarks on multiple occasions publicly regarding our sesquicentennial events and their inability to play pickleball last Saturday for a prom that only sold 90 tickets, in quotes. People should not have to be bullied or intimidated by anyone, let alone a member of our community council, for utilizing the community center, especially for an event celebrating New Freedom. That being said, the committee will be supporting REC at their annual July parade, and we invite all members of council to join us on our sesquicentennial float. And I'll give you this to take back.
Why was my name mentioned if he's the liaison?
Don't you
Or
normally attend?
You go to the REC meeting.
Sure.
That's what, yeah, you just put both your names
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was she referencing anybody else other than Garvey?
No, I don't think so.
Did you reference anybody else?
No,
other-
it's on the sheet. He's the only one.
Okay.
He's been a nightmare for months.
Richard Colton, Stormwater Basin Maintenance.
I did have an opportunity to speak with Attorney Jones in reference to the storm maintenance agreement, and he pretty much clarified what it calls for and what it does.
Hit your button there. There you go.
There you go. What it calls for and what it does. My only question is with the Highland Meadows development sort of contributing water to this. The Bear family's maintained that detention pond and the swales for over 36 years. And now with the advent of the Highland Meadows development contributing water to it, it's understood that any owner of parcel lot 10 continues to maintain the swales that come all the way down from Rutledge Road all the way down to the detention pond along the trail. But in that the borough maintains the inlet pipe off of Mulberry Lane to the detention pond. but it does call for the owner of Lot 10 to maintain the exit pipe that goes down to the creek that exits out of the detention pond. So it's just wanted to ask if the borough would consider a resolution to not only maintain when it comes to construction, but if there were to be like a major disaster of the inlet and outlet pipes, if they would take over the repair of that. The maintenance of the ongoing maintenance of that detention pond is rather lengthy, and it's not an issue really to maintain it. It just takes time on a weekly basis, especially in the summer. But
So they
again,
would continue to maintain it, cutting the grass and whatnot.
oh yeah, the maintenance is
Right.
totally, just said, and actually it is part of the yard. It does, contribute a swale across the entire length of the property that needs to be maintained, and part of that's fairly steep. But, and again, in 36 years, there hasn't really been anything required as far as any kind of maintenance on it, and it doesn't appear that there is now, or probably should be in the next who knows what years. But again, it's almost sort of taken on a community role in taking care of more than one property. That was our only thought, that maybe the borough would consider any major maintenance to the exit of the detention pond.
Do you have any comments, Dave?
Well, just, yeah, I looked into this, and if you'll recall, there's lot 10 that's at the end of Mulberry Lane that has a detention basin on it and a house. And there's a note that goes with the plan, and the note basically says that the borough shall take care of the pipe that goes from Mulberry Lane into the basin. It also says that there's a 30-inch corrugated pipe that runs out of the basin and into the stream on the other side of the rail trail. And it says that the property owner shall take care of the basin and that 30-inch corrugated pipe. So as I explained to Rich, when I talked to him, I can confirm that we, the borough, has the responsibility to take care of the pipe going into the basin. But it's up to Borough Council whether or not you want to take on the maintenance of that pipe going out of the basin. Now, I think if you're interested, if you're willing to do that, there would have to be an easement drawn up, because I don't think it goes that far to take care of that. The other thing that gets a little tricky is what constitutes maintenance of that versus maintenance of the basin, and so on and so forth. Because wherever that outlet pipe goes, I mean, if there's erosion around that, is that part of the basin? Is that part of the pipe? I mean, I think we would have to have some discussions. I don't know, Dennis, if you have any thoughts on that, but it might be hard to slice and dice what's whose responsibility.
Well, yeah, and, excuse me, and another question I had, does the borough set itself up for any other situation where there's something like this and we're gonna have a request by property owner that the borough take over reconstruction, maintenance?
Yeah,
because
There's certainly precedent.
And this one's unique in that there's a house on the same property that there's a basin. Usually they're separated off with separate parcels, so.
The other thing that's unique about this is the note is extremely detailed about we're going to have the borough's going to have responsibility for the pipe going in, and the property owner's going to have responsibility for it going out. And typically you wouldn't see it quite that detailed. It's very, very specific the way this was drafted to separate those duties. So it really, the only thing the borough was responsible for was maintaining the pipe from Mulberry Lane into that. So it was very, very specific in how it was drafted. It was put on record. I mean, back in the 80s, this was fairly well developed for the responsibility for that. And I understand that there may have been another basin or another development that sent its water this way into this basin, but I'm not sure that has anything to do with us at the borough level. That's obviously it's part of the the community, so to speak. But I don't know what the deal was at the time. Rich didn't think that the property owner got anything for that. But again, it would take some. There would be a document that would need to be recorded if the borough council were interested in doing this. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that there has to be some work done to correct that.
I got a quick question. So the other development, Highland Meadows, the one that's above it, when they put their development in, do they have a separate stormwater plan?
Yeah, there was a complete stormwater plan that would have been approved by York County Conservation and went through the entire subdivision land development process. So whatever that discharge point was that added to this flow would have been approved through.
So it's all covered, okay.
Yeah, I
But it
don't
all
think anything
goes
was
into
done.
that basin,
Well,
right?
just the overflow. The
Just the
basin's
over- I got
maintained,
you.
so the
I got
chance that that
Right.
basin fills up and overflows is unlikely.
I don't think there was anything done that was not above board. Everything seems to be done appropriately and above board, and it was documented. And for whatever reason, we can't find, there's nothing of record. There's two other plans that are referenced, two other sheets of this plan that are referenced. They're not on record. Rich checked with Gordon Brown. They don't have copies of them. We don't have copies of them at the borough. So there's a page 4 and 5 of this plan that's not anywhere of record and appears to have disappeared. So I don't know if it was ever on record or whatever, but it was never on record in the courthouse. So I don't know where those two sets of plans are. But I think that the intent is to basically separate those responsibilities between the property owner and the borough.
You know, what is the current condition of the effluent?
Well, I think that's a major concern, obviously, if the council were to vote to adopt that section as well, we would have to evaluate the condition of the pipe and the condition of the structure. It's not a new structure, obviously. It's different if you're taking a new structure
Right.
as responsibility, where this is.
Who
Since
created
it goes
this?
into the stream, does that involve then DEP?
Well, it's already, it's existing. Now, if you were to replace it, you could run into the same issues that we're running into now. with
Oh,
the
don't we?
soil
Yeah.
constitution avenue. But as long as it's, you know,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what were you thinking?
Who created this retention?
So it was Fred Bear, who was the original owner and developer of the development, and who owned, I think, built the house on his property, is that right? So Fred and Dorothy Bear are the folks that developed this 22 lot subdivision. They created lot 10 and they built the streets and sold off the lots, and they retained lot 10, built their house on that, and then they put the basin in and all the infrastructure. So at the time when they said, well, we're gonna own it, we'll maintain it, I guess.
And then when they built the Highland Meadows, they came to Mr. Bear to ask for an easement to use the swales and access to the detention pond, which I think the borough required the access also to the detention pond. But just being the person he is, he just agreed and signed it and said no big deal. So, but it just seems like it's taken on a little more of a community atmosphere as far as the detention pond itself. But, I mean, they understand what is, but just wanted to, you know, with the advent of some, not just exclusively this subdivision handling that water, just thought it might be a reasonable request to, if they're gonna take care of the inlet, they could take care of the outlet as well. That's all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that before we could even entertain a motion, we would at least have to examine both pipes and make sure, see where, you know, see what we're buying, I guess.
and I think, in my opinion too, going forward in the future, again, most of these basins are on a separate parcel.
Yeah, this one is unusual in that it's part of the yard, basically.
And then the responsibilities could be clarified either way.
What is the cost in that,
In what?
going out, what you just proposed?
Oh, that's just, that would just be a survey. Would you use an engineer or just you would go out? Yeah, it would just be an indirect cost of us going out and making sure that it was, I mean, normally, if it's a new development, it would all be new, and we would be looking at maintenance 30 years down the road. But now with this, I mean, it might be 2 weeks. So we at least need to look at it and see what the condition is.
How far is the outlet from the creek?
Basically right on the creek.
Feet.
It's right there on the.
So it's just a couple of feet?
Basically drops right into the creek.
Well, I don't know how long the pipe is, if that's your question.
Yeah, because if we're gonna take on the maintenance of that, then it's gonna, the expense is gonna be, how long is it? Like you said, we're going through a.
I think we should ask the borough manager to go head out and
Yeah.
take a look and see what's required, and then we can more fully consider it.
The
maybe
plan
next
doesn't
meeting.
require us to do what is being requested, is that correct?
Correct, it would take action at council to change what was on the approved plan, to say that you would maintain that pipe. So that's why I said to Mr. Cole, he needs to come here and ask for borough council to do that.
Who owns that property now? Didn't you say that?
It's still part of the Bear family, but it's in the family's estate.
It's the estate.
He's trying to get the property sold, so so he wants to take away the liability from a potential buyer, correct me if I'm wrong, take the liability away from the buyer so that the buyer would be more likely to
I think
purchase.
that's a liability that the borough should
Well,
be
you
taking on.
have a retention pond besides your house. Who takes care
But I
of
don't
that?
own it. See, that's
Well,
what
that's what
Andy, that's what
who
Andy
takes
was
care of that?
saying. That is a separate piece of ground. Les Matthews owned it. He actually tried to get me to cut the grass, and I said no. But, yeah, Les Matthews owned it, and then per the land development plan, he turned it over to the borough. So now the borough owns it,
Oh,
they
okay.
maintain it. I don't have anything to do with it,
Yeah.
other than it's next to my house. But that's a normal thing for a land development plan. This just happens to be
This is
on the
a rare
same
one,
property.
yeah. Yeah, usually you don't get that circumstance where the house on the same, I mean, there were, in the eighties and nineties, that happened a lot more frequently. Since then, it really doesn't happen. We try to get and require the basements to be on separate lots. This is one of the rare ones.
So I would entertain a motion to at least go look at it, so we can make an informed decision.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Further discussion?
I'd say that we ought to have it on the next
Sorry?
month. I think we ought to have it on the next month's agenda.
Yeah, that would be good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
My vote is no.
Motion carries. My vote is aye. Take a look at it before next meeting.
I'd be glad to meet Mr. Schaefer out there if he would like.
Yeah, I'll keep in touch with you.
Okay. And then we'll put it on the agenda for next month after we have the information, so we can at least make an informed decision. Any other public comment? Did I lose him? He's not coming. Yes?
You mean about this subject?
No,
Or a
any
new
subject.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm here to, I think Jess is here. My name's Sue Myers. I'm on 3rd Street in New Freedom. I'm going to stand to this side so my back's not to you guys. I'm here about this new street lights that were put in on our street, and I know you've been hearing some complaints about it, and I just wanted to see what was going on with that. I've called the borough and left my complaint and also emailed MedEd and haven't heard back from them.
I could give you an update if you like. We talked about this at our last meeting. What we're trying to do right now is come up with a list of complaints, a list of offending streetlights, if you will. And then we're coming up with a solution, which is going to be a shield that's going to be put on. We're in the process of doing that, working with MedEd to do that. Something that everybody should know is this isn't just something we decided to do. This is the way all streetlights are going to be in the next 4 to 6 years. This is part of the whole switching to halogen, switching to things that are more green. So, but yes, I've seen it. I do agree with you. It is a problem, and we are working to come up with a solution. And we'll have a list of streetlights. So please, contact the borough office and let them know which light it is, and it'll be prioritized on a list.
Okay. I mean, I completely agree with saving energy with the LED lights. That's fabulous. But I think there's more you can do than just shields. I know there's dimmer. I mean, beyond the shields and the glare that goes beyond where it needs to go, The light is still too bright. I think the wattage needs to be turned down, needs to be dimmed. So I think there's 3 different things you can do. You can dim the lights, you can shield the lights, and you can also put a lens in there so that it's more of an amber light and not that really bright blue light. And all of that affects human health, wildlife health, all those 3 things together. So it's not just the shield. So I would recommend that you look into more than just shields.
No, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think we all agree with you 100% that something needs to be done, and we are working towards that end.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Feel free to stop back and, in a couple of months, and hopefully we'll have it worked out. I mean, I don't know how long.
Yeah, as far as the shields, I know Public Works was working, we just got the model number and information off of the lights, so that we can, and we have specs now on the shields that just arrived today. So we'll be able to look at the different options and what's needed for that specific location. So if it's on the street side or the house side or left and right, it depends on what shield you can get, as well as the length of the shield.
Yeah, the lens idea is not, that sounds, have you
It's a
seen anything?
sealed unit.
It's a seal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can, even with the shield, you'll still be able to play basketball or do your nails under that. You don't need to do that at nighttime, so, yeah. All right.
Is
Thank
this something that is the borough responsibility, or does this fall on Med Ed? I mean, I know Med Ed kind of came to us and said, look, we can't get replacement parts for the old system. Everybody's going to LEDs, I know. I think even Glen Rock went with them, Shrewsbury. And I thought Med Ed, approached everybody.
So these upgrades are specific to streetlights that are owned by Med Ed, but the borough pays for
The electricity.
As far as the streetlights at the boroughs, and I know that Public Works, they've been working to switch those out as well.
Is there a maximum lumen that's allowed within a borough?
Well, there were recommended replacement values from Med Ed. I know that they're equivalent for all the lights that we chose. I believe there are 155 street lights that are owned by Med Ed in New Freedom Borough. Only 1 or 2 of those was higher, received a higher than 90 watt LED. That's because whatever light was there was higher than the average, so intersections, not usually the residential run parallel streets. So again, it was all based on Med Ed's recommended replacement of those LEDs. Anything outside of that, so if you were to go back and install a 90 watt LED, if you were to go back and install a 50 watt LED, which is the lowest value, which Med Ed does not recommend because they've had complaints that it's not enough light from that, you're going to pay for that replacement of that fixture.
And now we're not paying for the replacement, other than the few.
Other than a few that require the update,
that weren't
yes.
quite ready.
See where we end up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeff? No, yeah, there you go.
My name is Jim Holly. I represent New Freedom Heritage, and I want to approach the Borough Council for approval to close several streets for the September 16th New Freedom Fest. The fest runs from 10 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. And the streets that are involved is Franklin Street, and we would close off Franklin Street about over top of the bridge for the creek. That we would allow traffic to go into the parking lot next to the bike shop, because that's where we call for handicapped parking. Coming around to the south for Railroad Avenue, which is one of our main streets where the museum is, we would close that at Main Street. Moving across the tracks to Front Street, we would close Front Street at Pisano's building front corner of their building. We would go to the rear, the alley to the rear of Pisano's and close that in line with the building. Next, we'd move over to Franklin Street again, and we would close that at the west edge of Crescent Industries parking lot so that that alley could be maintained open. We'd move down to the alley next to the Hodel, and we'd close that at 2nd Street. Then we'd move down to Penn Street, we would close that just back from Front Street. Then we would go down the end of Front Street at the next alley, which I think is Gas Alley. Goes down by Corbin's property in the back. And we would close Front Street there, which still allows access to, from the alley to go left out past the Child Care Center. And in addition to those closures, that's 8 separate spots. We would like your permission to close Franklin Street from the creek to Railroad Avenue Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock. We would like to put up a tent in front of the old Lamont building. And we have a sponsor, Vortex Brewery, who is right there. They would occupy the tent, and there would be an Oktoberfest type of atmosphere created in that tent by Vortex Brewery. So that's what we're requesting you to approve. And we'd like to know either tonight or by July if you need more time.
Is this isn't substantially different from what you've done in years past, right?
Same we've done every year.
Other than the tent, right?
Other than the
Other
tent,
than
that's
the
correct.
When would that tent be coming down?
Saturday after,
Saturday would
after
be-
5 o'clock.
Okay,
Then we have a gang, we have a whole gang, take it down.
So that would restrict traffic from Friday to Saturday coming down Franklin Street. How are they gonna turn around?
Well, they go to the alley past the old Nardi's food store that comes out of
Okay,
Marble.
I didn't know if that was an alley or private property.
That's an alley.
Okay.
It's an alley, and we
It's
can
a
put a
public
sign up
street.
that says, yeah, we can put a sign up that says road closed except the local traffic.
Yeah. It'll be marked.
I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Thank you for doing this again this year. I know it's been a problem in the past couple of years trying to get it out.
Well, they tell me that the Art Walker runs the fest, and almost all the arts and crafts sponsor almost.
Oh, that's good.
So, and he's, if you look at that map that you all have, all the arts and crafts are going to be between Main Street and Franklin Street, Front Street.
Oh, cool. Let me just finish. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
Thank you all.
No, you're fine. Bruce?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I did not take the opportunity to put myself on the agenda, but an item that's come up obviously in the discussions recently and probably going to occupy some of your time tonight is the potential changes due to Glen Rock's position on the Southern Regional Police Department and what the implications for that are. At the last meeting I was able to attend from the Southern Regional Police Commission, there were a number of numbers that got bandied around in terms of what the hourly rate was going to be. Generally, they were in the $80 per hour range. When I heard that, it sort of like was, what? Where did you get that number from? Because 7 years ago, the Police Commission had a formula committee that looked at how to calculate an hourly rate. And after a lot of discussion, a lot of heartburn, the folks that were involved there in terms of business leaders, people with finance backgrounds and things like that, all finally agreed that here's the right way to calculate an hourly rate. At that time, the hourly rate was going to be $110 an hour. And I just found it hard to believe how 7 years later, we could move from $110 an hour down into the $80 an hour range and say we're recovering costs. It just doesn't seem right. There are some things that have gone down in those years. My cell phone bill is one of them, but I don't think labor-intensive activities like police services have gone down. They have in fact gone up. And as I listened to the discussion, what was going on, it became clear to me that sometimes we're confusing, maybe you heard maybe your mother used to tell you when you tried to tell her why you should do something or not, she said, don't confuse apples with oranges. In this case, what we're confusing oftentimes are apples with apples. So with that, let me give you a handout here, and we'll get into that discussion briefly. I promise, I hope I won't take up too much. And rather than talk about how we're going to calculate a cost, I thought it would be useful, if there's a disagreement on what those numbers are, so let's go back and look historically at what the cost was, where we have no ambiguity in the numbers and the analysis that's done. So there's no hypothesizing whether we use this many hours or this is what the budget is. And so I went back into the numbers that existed for fiscal year 2022, the last fiscal year that we had. And so what you want to look at when you're calculating an hourly rate is obviously some kind of dollar sign in the numerator and some kind of hour number in the denominator, and you ratio those up and you come up with an hourly rate. So what you're looking at on this chart here, the first line is what is called a community hours. The reports that you get in your, and I want to thank the mayor, whoever's been putting these in every month. These are in our annual reports, and for the public who's sitting here, these are the things we're talking about. They're in your folders. And I'm sure all of you do exactly what I do when I go home, take all these numbers and put them into your spreadsheets, right? Well, maybe not, but some of us do that. Those of us who do analysis for a living, it's just sort of a compulsive thing. All right, but in here, in this every 4 weeks, we get a numbers that come from the police department, and it tells us, for example, each municipality, each customer that's being served, how many hours of service they get. In addition, the member communities are tagged for how many administrative hours that they get tagged with. And then you're looking at here, there's an overtime set of numbers for each municipality or customer that talks to the overtime related to duty hours or to court hours. You get that for every 4 weeks. And on the chart that you've been given here, I showed those for every 4-week period in the calendar year 2022 for each of the communities. So those are the community hours. It also breaks out in there the community overtime hours and those hours and it reported for court time. Underneath that, you'll see that there's a community administrative hours. Those are the hours that are shown on this chart in the community admin time. I've summarized them all because I'm not trying to break them down by community. And also shows the administrative hours for the overtime and the court time. Now, if you sum up all those hours, you'll find out what I call service hours. And those are the hours that are called in the community hours, the community overtime, and the community court time. That's when a police officer is actually providing direct services to the community. You know, there's been a car accident, they're out there directing traffic or doing something to straighten the mess out. Maybe there's been a burglary, so they're come out there to assess what's happened. The detectives follow up on it. If they catch somebody, they go to court. Those are direct service hours. Other things, for example, our administrative hours officers are on vacation time, taking sick leave, bereavement leave, training, all kinds of things that have to be done. Those are all administrative time. And when I say we've confused apples with apples, you need to sort out what hours do you really want to consider. There are a lot of hours that are actually go on in the police department that don't get reported in here. For example, we have civilians that are paid by an hourly rate. They're not reported there. Those are handled in a different way in terms of your budgeting and determining hourly rates. You also have contractors that support the police department who may submit an hourly rate as well. Point is, we only want to look at the service hours. And so on the bottom lines here, what you look at in FY 2022, the total service hours, based on all these numbers that are reported here, were 19,401.37 hours. Those total admin hours were 13,897.96 hours. So the total hours delivered by the police department in fiscal year 2022 were 33,299.33 hours. Well, that's already probably making your head spin already with what are all these numbers about. So let's get down to calculating an hourly rate. So what were the actual expenditures in fiscal year 2022? The expenses, now where do you get that number from? Well, each year they produce at the end of the year their fiscal year reports. So if you get a copy of that, those numbers are right there. And the expenses that were actually paid out in 2022, $2,306,542. In addition to that, we had capital outlays of $70,951. The total spent then, therefore, during the whole year, money that went out the door, the real money that left the door, not a budgeted amount, but the money that went out of your checking accounts, $2,377,493. Now, if you take that money, that amount of money, and you divide it by the total service hours, so this is what you're actually buying. This is why you have police. You don't have police because you want to send them on vacation. You have police because you want them to provide that necessary service to you. So you divide that $2.377 million by the 19,401 total service hours, and the cost per service hour is $122.54. And that's a good deal difference than the 80-some dollars an hour that I was hearing bandied about at the police commission meeting. And those are actual numbers. That's your historical numbers. There's no doubt about that. Now, how do you get to that 80 number or close to it, that $80 number? Well, if you look at every hour that's expended, including the administrative hours that you just have to incur anyway, then you get the number down to like $71.40. So which is right? Well, the answer is, and as the formula committee determined, you look at the actual service hours. You incur everything else as a necessity in those service hours. And so when you're looking at that and you're going to make a decision about whether or not you want to agree with what numbers may be charged to Glen Rock. So for you folks on here on the council, you need to understand this and think, are those numbers, do they sound right? And there's a consequence for making a wrong decision here. Back in 7 years ago when the formula committee met, we all agreed that it was that number of roughly $110 an hour, and that we would move to an hourly based fee system. And that would make it equitable for everybody. There was no need to apply percentages of which they had been doing for years before, which were woefully inadequate. Everybody would be charged an equal hourly rate based on the service. Unfortunately, that whole process got derailed, and we got into a PPU-based system, which I'm not going to take your time up now, but it's not a good system. That said, what are the consequences of a bad decision? I'm going to hand you out here another chart. So I know we don't do business by charging an hourly rate to everyone. School systems get a different rate, they're charged one thing, contract communities get something else, members communities are charged by PPUs. But had you done it that way, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we take and look at the actual community hours that are shown in your chart, and then we multiply that by the $122 an hour, the total hours are being handed out now, and those hours consist of the community hours, the community overtime hours, and the community court time hours. If you sum all those up, and that's the actual service you get, times the $122 an hour and change, that's what it would cost each community to pay for the police. Now, we do something like that when we run our regional sewer plant. We look at, how many gallons of sewage flow in, and that's what we base our costs on. And we do a proportionate report each year based on that. So if you look at proportionally, what would you pay based on all those hours you take out? This is what the charges would be. And interesting to note, we're going through a whole exercise here now because Glen Rock says they can't afford to pay what the charges are. Had we done and stayed on track with what the recommendation was from the formula committee 7 years ago, at least last year, To recover those costs and everybody paying the same hourly rate, Glen Rock would have got all of the hours that they got, and their cost would have been $292,000. This is below the $300,000 that Glen Rock has said they can afford, and they would have gotten it, and you might not be in this discussion today about does Glen Rock stay, does Glen Rock go. Now, you're not going to change this overnight, but this is what happens when you make bad decisions. Now, you're going to get some analysis that may come on here, or somebody may tell you the number is $80 an hour or whatever. You need to ask, prove that it's $80 an hour. You're seeing here the actual historical numbers that show if you try to recover that dollar amount based on the actual hour of police service, that number is $122 and change as of last year, real numbers. I appreciate your time. I hope that this informs your discussion. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. If not, my wife has dinner holding, and so I'm not going to wait for too long. So,
Thanks, Bruce. I'm sure we're gonna all be talking about this for quite some time.
Okay.
I mean, right now, we allowed to talk about those numbers?
No.
No, okay. I mean, I'm this far apart from what the police commission is, so
Right.
I'm not sure where they're gonna end up. But
And-
you're right, there's more to consider than just the, you definitely have to back out, I mean, even contractually, you have to back out Southern, Southeastern, you can't put in the school because everything is based on member municipalities. So, and Southern and Southeastern are not technically member municipalities.
right, so you can't, based on the contracts that you have with them, what I was saying that before they ever came into this with the new contracts 7 years ago, the movement was to put everybody on an hourly basis. Had that been done, you would not be in part of this situation now because no one can tell exactly. I've never got an audit in terms of who gets what or whatever, but when you look at what those actual hourly rates are, you can look at, I don't know what our bill was last year. Maybe, obviously, you folks do, I don't remember seeing it, but had we done it like that, that's what our bill would have been in the $500-some-odd-thousand
This
range.
year it was 709,000, about
Okay.
710,000.
So there's a significant difference there, and you probably want to look at that and think about it before you agree to anything. But I appreciate your time.
And I know, just for the record, I know that you would make yourself available to Kim and Erica if they have any
I
questions.
am available to anyone here on the council who wants to discuss it further, to do any additional analysis. Make myself available to you. It's just give me a call. Meet here, meet wherever we want to do. Obviously, I didn't get a real warm reception at the police commission meetings. As some of you may have seen, and the time for public comment there is not nearly as liberal as it is here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Before we go to Bruce? Maybe you can extend an explanation, a little bit of an explanation on why Police Commission is looking at a total of 59 PPUs. The municipalities use 47, 48 of those PPUs. Is it unfair or fair to translate those PPUs into hours and would we come up with these same figures that you're looking at?
Yeah, the issue with PPUs is that no one knows what a PPU is. And I don't say that to be derogatory to people, but a PPU is 520 hours of a policeman's time. Each policeman is counted as 4 PPUs. And this was something, whether it was originated in Northern Regional Police Department or someplace else, but they were big proponents of the PPUs. And about 5 years ago, when we got into the disagreement on how to do stuff, PPUs were rolled in. At that time, there were people on the council who did not know what a PPU was. And if you said, well, we want to get 10 hours of police service a week, that's 500, and by that I mean 10 hours. I want to put an officer on the street or investigating something, doing some real work for me. And I want 10 hours a week of that. That's 520 hours. How many PPUs do I need? People are saying, well, you need 1 PPU. What they didn't know, and what the council doesn't know, and maybe some of you don't know either, is that the PPU isn't a service hour. It's just 1/4 of what we pay a patrol officer for. That includes his vacation time, sick leave time, everything else that's in there. And I made a little handout that I gave to others. I think, Andy, I gave it to you. I don't know if you took the time to, I had the time to look at it. But it is entirely possible that you could take 2 police departments with different budgets, slightly different structures, and one police department can tell you, you can have a PPU that's less than another department. But remember, you don't want PPUs. What you want are actual police officers on the street. So if you want to say, I want 10 hours of patrol time, you will actually come up, in some cases, with the wrong number or more expensive solution by choosing a lower cost PPU provider. Because it's all wrapped up, there's a lot in a PPU that is masked and that you don't know. For example, if you look at Northern Regional police reports where they put them together, and I did back those years ago to understand what the PPUs was, you'll see that they report PPUs, and this may get to your question, Kim, so many PPUs that get allocated to every municipality member. Then there's a separate part in the report that talks about overtime. Overtime isn't counted in a PPU. So who pays for it? How does it get apportioned? Those things are not at all clear in this whole PPU process. If you look at the total hours that were delivered in FY 2022, those hours were 33,299.33 hours. If you say a PPU is defined as 520 hours, divide that in there, you'll come up with, I believe it's like 64 PPUs. So where's all this stuff come from? PPUs are not a good way to measure stuff because they're not consistent across, they're not applied to everybody. This goes back, if you want to apply and you want to be fair to everybody, you want to use the same method of measurements for everybody. It's like if you go to Giant, it says, I ask the butcher, how much is the chopped meat today? He tells me, well, yeah, it's $4.99 a pound. And Kim walks in and Kim asks the butcher, how much is the chopped meat? He says, well, it's $2.99 a pound. And I said, well, why does Kim get it for $2.99 and I get it for $4.99? Well, Kim buys it under the PPU process. It's like, what? So, yeah, these are confusing terms that aren't clear. And in terms of transparency for government and people to really understand what the costs are, they're not helpful at all. So, again, Andy, you're right. Anybody wishes to have any further questions, I'm available almost at any time. So, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. I have one other quick thing. The Lions Club is represented here tonight, and under the current burn ban, the fireworks need to be approved by the municipality for them to go off. So we are not. While we're in the middle of a burn ban, it's raining. Hopefully, it will continue. And we also have an area that is protected, and we have a fire department that's going to be on scene. So I see no problem with the fireworks, and I would entertain a motion to approve the fireworks for this year. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. Approval of the minutes for the meeting held May 8th.
Motion, we approve the minutes for May 8th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Second, discussion?
Yes. On page 2 at the bottom, the action taken on the amusement ordinance tax, if we can just list the two or the closing vote, who voted opposed to that? Are those 5 right at the bottom? Motion failed with a 5-2 vote. It's always listed on, who does that? And over on park improvements, the only thing that's
I'm
listed.
sorry, what did you, what was the
Yeah,
correction?
so, motion failed with a 5-2 vote. Who voted in favor for that motion? We always list the names of,
Oh, I got you.
yeah. I think that was action taken. On page 3 for the Margie Goodfellow Park improvements, the only, that it mentions that it was passed, motion, it only lists that the borough will pay $13,000. Need to insert that the site plan for Margie Goodfellow, the second line there, was $63,847. And that the last line there, the outside funding was $35,000 that was previously designated for Margie Goodfellow Pavilion from Burkentine. So that's reflected accurately of the action taken.
We had that in the writing as far as it was gonna go to a pavilion, that is correct?
Yep, and that's why it should be there.
I'm
Yeah.
not disagreeing, I'm just saying, I've never actually seen it in writing, I've just heard it.
I don't know if it said it was for Marty Goodfellow, I think it said it was 35,000 for a pavilion within the borough.
Right.
At the park, everybody knows it was at the park.
Well,
That's
he's
what-
asking what was in writing, and I'll tell you
Yeah,
what's in writing.
that's,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Well,
Yeah.
warehouse contract, voting on the warehouse contract.
No, the developer's agreement with Burkentine said it was $35,000 for a pavilion. He asked a very specific question, and it didn't say Marty Goodfellow, it just said to be somewhere in the borough, it did not specify.
because I think people, it just
Marty
became
Goodfellow.
essentially urban legend that that's where it was
I
supposed to
saw
be.
the plans and then saw where they were gonna put it.
I think
In,
that was,
in phase
I
1,
think
2,
it was
3.
always intended for March Goodfellow
But
Park, but
he's asking what was in writing.
Right, he asked
It
what
was
was in
not
writing, and it
designated
just
for
says
March.
in the borough, that's what the
We agree
does
with
say.
that.
I don't know that I ever saw that.
Park improvement, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
But yes, I think we probably
I don't
all
think
agree
any
that
of us
it's
saw it.
supposed to be March Goodfellow Park.
Absolutely.
I'll amend my motion for those changes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'll amend my second.
I'm sorry?
I'll amend the second, I'll wait to do both.
Yes, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. You know what you need? It's on it. Okay, next item is the treasurer's report for May of 2023. I would entertain a motion to accept pending audit.
So moved.
First,
Second.
and a second, discussion, questions?
There were questions submitted this afternoon around 2 o'clock. Due to the length of the questions and the timing, I did not have time to assemble a response. So it's up to council whether you want to table that until those questions can be asked, or if you want to review them.
Well, if we table, they've already been paid.
I will, those are my questions, only my questions.
Yes.
I will take those questions this following week. For the answers, you can
That's
email me
fine.
back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will accept that.
You want to table or? We got, the one question was, I think on both lists, you said about the repair on the cylinder for the,
For the list?
yeah,
Projects? Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was just a repair.
right. Anything else then? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. March Goodfellow Park feasibility study and master site plan. This is, wait a second. This This is what we were talking about in the minutes just now. This is to allow Weyerhaeuser to proceed. No, I had paper on that.
This is to appoint, well,
It's
yeah,
just to appoint
we
the
did,
committee.
but this is to appoint the committee
Okay,
to be a part of the study.
gotcha. Okay, the committee for the, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you, Mary Ann, and I apologize, things just got out of hand, but I would, if you would be able to be on the committee for Marge Goodfellow Park improvements, okay, and Andrew Schaefer will be on the committee. Bob Dixon has agreed to be on the committee. I think he's an ideal choice because I know it's one more meeting that he doesn't have time for, but I mean, he would be ideal. Railroad, Lions Club, Jenny Neubauer has agreed, Ryan Ross, and myself. So that's 6 people on the committee that would be appointed tonight. I don't need a motion to it. It's just a committee. Okay.
Yeah,
Now
now,
we have to look for this though, right?
yeah, that's legal.
Okay.
We'll begin to schedule meetings now with that group and then proceed based on that proposal.
Great, thank you. Zoning, sign regulations.
So over the past month, I've come upon some pretty good sign ordinance that I'm reviewing for New Freedom for consideration. So I want to run that by Andy and we'll get that to you guys next month. It's a simplified kind of ordinance that applies more qualitatively than quantitatively, so you're not measuring things and figuring things out. It's kind of a little easier process.
One problem that we've had in the past that I would just point out is lumens and light, and so we need to make sure we address that. Okay. So
Plus there's ambiguity about the size of the signs based on where you are. That's the problem we have with Gunpowder Falls.
That's how this whole thing started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and this will address some of that. It makes it a little simpler.
Did they get a variance on the sign that they put up? I thought so. Because they were able to put together a sign above the building.
Just as an example, and then there's a couple other, Vortex is one that would like another sign, but under the current regulations, doesn't allow it.
We were gonna have signs on the trail too, and I don't know whatever happened to that. That, you know, like for instance, 7 and Vortex would be on the trail saying.
That's
you know,
part of the wayfinding with the Trail Town community, and that is actually, there's a meeting, I believe, Monday, with the group looking at that signage.
Is that Trail Towns meeting or?
No, it's just,
Oh, okay.
it's part of the Trail Towns, but kind of side committee.
Stormwater channel on North Constitution Avenue.
Don't have an update. Like I reported last month, we did receive erosion and sediment control approval from York County Conservation District. As far as the joint permit through DEP and Army Corps of Engineers, we have not received a response.
Okay. I guess that's just that, and there's not anything we can do there, because it falls in that court. Amusement tax, chapter 199, article 7.
You want me to go with that? All right, so I had asked to, just to have this added onto the agenda, not to bring it up for a vote or anything, but to basically question everybody, not question everybody, but to get everybody's input, if this is being, I guess, basically assessed evenly throughout the borough. It seems like it's kind of written towards one group, which I guess was the intent originally, because they were a for-profit. Now they're not. They are a non-profit now. I wonder if there's any other community organizations that are essentially getting away with not having an amusement tax that probably should have that.
Well, I mean, Andrew and I have talked about 2, or at least 1 right now, which would be Summit Grove, which is,
Yeah.
you know, they have amusement type activities, day camps, summer camps, things.
Yeah, so I don't know if camps all summer long, or if one camp running for a week kind of meets the 7-day requirement. You know, I'm just kind of curious. I just want to make sure that it's being applied equitably amongst everybody in the borough.
If I could, when you read that, it looks like the amusement tax even exists based on individual permit kinds of things. It doesn't exist for something that's an ongoing use.
Well, I think the verbiage in there is what, more than 7 days? So,
And more than 7 days.
But it implies that you're gonna get in a permit each time you do something. If you look at the beginning of it.
mhm.
And they said an exclusion of that was the bowling alley when you have bowling all the time going on.
Well, the amusement permit is renewed annually, so it doesn't necessarily have to be for each individual event. Just like NCR gets an annual permit, correct, Andy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't actually take a motion on this, but I mean, one interesting point is that we, right now, and of course, it's not guaranteed that it'll continue forever, but right now, we rebate back to NCR some portion of their amusement tax, which allows them to take that portion of the tax and give it back to New Freedom. Because what they do are services in New Freedom to have lower cost tickets for the citizens. If we take away the amusement tax, we take away the ability to give them back part of it.
Yeah. So that money is, how often is that collected throughout the year? And
Monthly.
It's monthly.
It's paid quarterly or something?
It was monthly.
Is it monthly?
Okay. Oh, that's. And then we've given back, what, last 2 years?
Yeah.
An average of, was it 50% each year?
No, Andy and I met with them and came back and discussed with council. I think the first year we went with a third, and then last year we went with 50% to try to help them out. COVID really hit them bad. It didn't hit everybody bad, but it was really that we could kind of assist them not being able to run for 2 years.
But I think the tax, I guess what I'm trying to say is the tax serves a purpose. Number one, it gives money back to the, money back to the citizens for lower price tickets. And it also gives money to New Freedom Borough, because obviously if you have, I mean, you could go down any weekend and see what the train does to traffic, and there probably is an increased police presence required. So I think it does two things. So I guess that's my opinion.
No, we're putting what, new lights in for crosswalks and things?
Yeah.
I don't know that we really would need that if we didn't have that NCR traffic coming in, going shopping, crossing over
Those lights are needed on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Anybody using the trail is going to benefit from them.
Yeah, that's true, but the businesses all benefit from having NCR there.
Correct.
And,
Yeah.
so I think it's a very win-win situation.
Agreed. I'm not trying to say that it's not. I just want to make sure that there's not other groups in the borough that are not being assessed an amusement tax that maybe should be.
Yeah, the only one I would know of would be Summit Grove.
Yeah, but there's other, maybe churches or other events that they just don't know about in the community. Maybe somebody else had an idea.
I don't know too many of those groups that I see that are doing 7 day. I mean, unless you're going to include Bible school, is that an amusement? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. Dave, I have a question for you. We kind of touched on it last month. What if, and Bob was here, is Bob still here? No, he left. We said, how about if it was just a New Freedom resident doesn't have to pay it? You said, no, we can't do that?
Generally, you can't discriminate against people because of the place of residence when it comes to taxation.
Somebody even mentioned Disney World. You know, well, if you're a resident of Florida, you get a discount. You don't pay that tax.
We're not in Florida, we're in Pennsylvania.
No, I know that, but.
The Pennsylvania Constitution has a uniformity provision when it comes to taxes.
So
They don't have it for-
if somebody goes to buy a ticket and they have a driver's license that says they're in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, we can't say, okay, you don't have to pay the tax. Because that's what you're saying.
Kind of like buying a car in Maryland, you're still gonna pay that tax when you register.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I
that-
don't know, is it?
I guess that's
I'm
kind
not-
of, the other thing is, I mean, whether or not it's legal or not, it's pretty ripe for abuse. Like, how do you verify that?
Driver's license.
Yeah, but the borough doesn't have everyone's driver's licenses when that money comes in to compare it to.
That'd be a
You'd
logistical
have to
nightmare.
trust
They
NCR
would keep
that
track.
they're checking, and okay, if you have a driver's license says you live in New Freedom.
Yeah.
I'm just putting this off for later, maybe.
Disney's a whole different ballgame.
I know,
It's
somebody
different
brought that
state,
up.
yeah,
and
different
it's-
states.
Well, a large scale one, Sight and Sound in Lancaster, they all get free tickets. They show their licenses and they get yearly tickets for everybody in their home, free.
That's not charging them anything. So they're still gonna charge, NCR will still charge, but the question is whether you can put tax on that.
Yeah, I think the difference here is this is taxation.
Yes.
It's not.
I'm just
If
wondering.
NCR wants to give free tickets to the folks in New Freedom, then there would be zero.
So if we do nothing with this,
Well,
basically it
yeah,
stays
I'm
the way
not
it is
saying
now.
zero, because they need to make something.
But that's sight and sound, that's.
I didn't know if there was something against the law that would not allow us to do that.
I would entertain or not a motion to approve this.
What are we approving?
I'm not,
It's the amusement tax. If
We already have.
if we don't approve it, it just stays the way it is now and we
no, it's,
can.
I'm not asking for a change.
This is the original.
Oh, this is the original?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just asked, just for
I thought
purposes
we
of
made
conversation.
Clarification and.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the way the amusement is defined, I mean, it could be applied very broadly.
Yeah.
Could be a what?
Could be applied very broadly.
Right.
All manner in forms of entertainment, diversion, sport, pastime, excursion, exhibition, or recreation. You know, some people read for recreation. Some people do different things. So, again, I don't, from that perspective.
There could be a beer drinking.
Could be, to Ryan's point, there may be other instances of this where it's not applied across the board. And I think if you went back in the record, you would find that this was enacted for one group.
Yeah, it seems.
Andy had a good idea when you mentioned Summit Grove. Okay, people pay an annual fee to use their pool, am I correct? Is that an amusement?
Well, it says the term admission, the term shall not include any membership dues, fees, or assessments, donations, contributions, so on and so forth, paid by the general public, or a limited or select number thereof for such persons to enter any place indoors or outdoors to engage in any activities the predominant purpose or nature of which is exercise, fitness, health maintenance. So swimming is arguably exercise and fitness. So it's specifically excluded
It
from
was
the
always
definition of
amusement
admission.
for me. It was amused at the.
So, or health and nutrition, education, or weight control, I mean, swimming could be all of those things. So I think you have to look at the definitions pretty closely as well.
Okay.
I just think it's very broadly drafted.
So quick clarification. We're gonna keep it in place. The only thing we have to decide each year is who gets any kind of rebate on it.
If there's a request.
If there's a request. To me, that makes perfect sense to keep it the way it is, yeah.
Okay.
So table it?
Well, there's nothing to
We don't need to.
Yeah, I wasn't asking for a change, so.
Yeah,
I think it's a
it's
discussion.
already in place, end of
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm glad we could talk
I guess
about
along
that.
those lines, are we supposed to look at the
Well,
broad
then-
picture of the borough and see where this might apply and meet with them individually? I guess that's.
Would you need a motion for that, for the direction of borough staff,
I
or?
mean, as far as like Summit Grove and.
Yeah, if we have an ordinance, I think you would have, already have approval to look into, right?
That's fine,
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
okay, thank you.
Ordinance amending Chapter 188 Stormwater Management. This was from last month. I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the ordinance modifying the stormwater management.
First,
Second.
second, discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
How did we come up with the current numbers now for the ones that we're trying to change? Where did it come from?
based on the original one that was adopted in September, the 240 square feet was based on the borough's zoning ordinance, which is the size basically allowed for utility shed. So that was the threshold that we used. That was the threshold that we used as the base amount up to, because that didn't need a building permit, only needs a zoning permit. And then from that point, we required a BMP be installed. So when we looked at had some feedback, and we looked at some other municipalities, they're starting at 500 square feet as opposed to 240 square feet. So it allows a resident or a property owner to make more improvements on the property without having to install that BMP.
And it meets the requirements of the stormwater.
It still meets DEP's model ordinance.
But that's still a fee of $1 a square foot, correct?
That's what we had talked about, and that's
Yeah,
what's in
yeah,
this.
that's only
Yep.
for 240 square feet, or is that up to 500?
Up to 500.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I have 5,000 square feet, what's it based on?
If you're
If
making
you
an
have,
improvement
if
of
you have that
500.
much money, you don't care about it.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
If you're
well,
making-
say it's over 500, say it's 1,500 square feet.
Then you would be required to do
You're
it.
not exempt.
You would be not exempt,
Right
you'd be
there.
required to install a
Look at the
BMP.
column, right there.
Oh, I missed that, okay,
So
sorry.
it's all spelled out.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. Next up is the land development plan for the solar array. It's already gone through planning.
Hello, everyone. I'll introduce myself and then I'll turn it over to Ben. I'm Seth Berry. We're the applicant, Solar Renewable Energy. We're out of Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, so not too far. So our role is we're going to be the landowner and the solar owner. So we have a background in commercial solar, done plenty of ground mount, roof mount solar projects, various types of entities. This is up our wheelhouse of in terms of the system size, this is a 3 megawatt size solar array. We've done several of those in Pennsylvania already. It's going to be a ground mount. The structure that's going to be done is a I-beam or a post-driven. So essentially the solar panels will be supported on an I-beam structure similar to like a guardrail. And then the other concept I would just say that we commonly get asked is, are these going to move or not? These are going to be fixed tilt, so it's non-movement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ben, who's our land development engineer on the project.
Good evening. You guys all have a copy of the plan and engineer comments?
They have a copy of just the cover page just because of everything.
Okay.
So yeah, if
Yep.
you want to go through those comments.
Yeah. I'll just give you, I'm not sure I have enough, I might just share between two here if we can.
What is this, comments from plans?
This is all the sheets, not just the front sheet. I'll get a larger one here. Here's the video, if you're trying to find, you just gotta do a large one up here, you gotta do that. I'll take this one, present it with you.
You want to, if you want to, I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to spread it out with other ones, that's fine.
We'll get the larger plan.
Great.
We need to bring the
They just knew his eyes were yours.
I got a kind of a general question. So this is all gonna be impervious stuff. Do we have to worry about that kind of a thing?
It's not impervious because it'll come off the, well, you should answer, I guess, but it'll come off the solar panel and drop to the ground, and it'll all be grass underneath.
So there's a DEP FAQ sheet that says certain percentage slopes, we have to have, however wide your panel is, you have to have that width between the panels, plus underneath the next panel, allows it to infiltrate in the ground to control the stormwater that drips off that. Under steeper slopes, we have to install some splash pads, which are in some sections out here, which is be addressed through the engineer comments, but yeah.
Okay, so we're good, Andy, on that?
Yeah, they're making improvements for the actual impervious that they're installing.
Correct. Yep, so just, we'll go here on sheet 1, shows the overall array. We have a 14.62 acre tract that is currently an open field with some wooded ground. On the north side, along the residential district, there was an existing buffer there. Those trees have became less coverage on the lower side of the trees than there's some at the top. So you'll see along the north end there, a new proposed vegetative buffer there to protect this array from the residential zone, to fill in the gap area out there. To the west end, coming off of Pleasant Avenue, you'll see an entrance coming in to a couple parking spots there. Just to the south of that, we have a proposed stormwater infiltration trench to handle all stormwater for that proposed access. Also along Pleasant Avenue will be proposed a couple street trees, 5 there, along with curbing and sidewalk. So that covers sheet 1. If you go to sheet 2, that's our existing conditions plan, showing the contours along with adjoining properties, and existing features out there. If you want to go to sheet 3, on the left side, we have a blow up of our proposed parking area. Mainly this is going to be for a couple trips maintenance wise, mow, maintain, check the facility. There's not much traffic in and out of this place. I'm going to say very few times a year. It's not even daily traffic in and out of here. A lot of this is remotely monitored, so if there's an issue, they can see it, come out, check it, questions.
The grass you plant grows like 6 inches tall.
It's a slower growing grass, yes. Yep. We also have in this sheet some details for handicap, sidewalk, curbing. In the middle of the sheet there, you'll kind of see a cross section of the array, how it is on the post, and how it's slanted. There's 2 solar panels shown that's in the middle of the sheet. We also have the fencing detail showing the fence that'll be going around the array. And then just below that, we have our clear site triangle, which will come up in some comments then. This is pretty much our detail sheet showing some different details of the area that need to be constructed out there.
That's a clear site coming out on Pleasant then, right?
Correct. Yep.
Have the residents along there been here or talked to anybody yet? 'Cause
Yeah, we have been through a special exception meeting, the planning commission meeting, a workshop meeting, so we've gone through pretty extensive meetings, public meetings to get to this point. Advertised meetings too.
Yes. I mean, I love the fact that you put the sidewalk in, but was that due to planning commission, or did you just
It
want
was
to?
a requirement within your ordinance.
Okay, because does that attach to another sidewalk?
No, just to the south, there's actually.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
there's nothing else there.
There's no sidewalk to the north and to the south. There's a parking entrance into a facility there, I'm not sure what that is. And then they have a small section to the south of their parking lot. I'm not sure when that was installed, but maybe you can.
Oh, that's been there a long time.
Yeah.
So this is north of Ceiling and Jones then?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, our sidewalk does not touch any other sidewalk or curbing out there. So if you go to the last sheet then, is again, an overall of our proposed panels, landscaping. On the bottom right is our landscaping plan that has been done by an architect, landscaping architect to show the trees that need to be planted out there to meet the ordinance. In the middle, the bottom page there labels about how many tree type and totals will be planted out there, along with the red or sugar maple trees along the Pleasant Avenue frontage. So without going too much further, do you have any questions about what we went over so far?
Just a general question. You said it's a 3 megawatt? What constitutes a megawatt? The number of panels, the size of the panels, or the acreage?
It's kind of like the capacity or the ability to generate power. So like one solar panel, for example, is 550 watts. So megawatt would be 1,000,000 watts. So
I'm sorry, is that, I have a question too, is that, just out of curiosity, is that on June 21st, clear day? Is that the maximum collection on longest day, or is that an average for the year?
that would be the, at any point in time, so that's the capacity. Like that's when you take all the solar panels times the wattage, that's how many watts are available. So it won't produce that much, like it'll do better during like June, July, August, obviously. But so I think what you're asking is more of kilowatt hours, so it would produce about 4 million kilowatt hours across the year. But so as far as quantities, you're looking at a little over 5,000 solar panels. They're about 550 watt apiece, so if you do the math, it's about 3 megawatts roughly.
No noise, hum, buzz, nothing? I think that was asked before, but.
It was all
So you sell the power to Med Ed then?
Correct, our customer will be Med on this, yep.
And you'll feed a line right into New Freedom, right?
Straight to your house.
Right next to the old water company right here.
So basically, there is a 3-phase power pole that's Med right across, like right in front of our property, so that would be, essentially, it'd connect to that pole, basically.
So if you go to the cover sheet there, you'll see a line that runs kind of east to west and northeast to southwest. That's a 12-inch wide trench of conduit that runs out to a transformer that we placed on the southeastern side of the parking lot with a pole taking it to the next utility pole. So most of this is all underground. The panels are connected on the back side of the panels. It's a loop system, and then goes into a conduit, so it's all one trench. Minimal earth disturbance out there as far as construction-wise goes. It uses a track or wheel piece of equipment out there to pound the post in, and then they carry the panels in there with a vehicle or piece of equipment to place the panels, so there's not much disturbance out there other than the parking area.
How long is the construction? How long is the construction period?
So I would say the actual construction is probably about like 2 to 3 months, but there will be a little bit of, the actual, like once we say go, it's probably like an 18-month cycle, like ordering equipment and all that, but on site's probably about 3, I would say.
That Med pole is on your side of Pleasant or the other side of Pleasant?
It's on our property.
Yeah, it's just on about the middle of the frontage there.
Kind of perfect location.
Yeah, so you don't have to do a street cut or anything?
Correct.
Okay.
Do any of the transformers fail catastrophically, or do they just quietly?
Like the useful life of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, whenever they die, do they, I mean.
Yeah, so this would be no different than like a business, so the transformer would actually belong to Med Ed, so they have a replacement timeline. I don't know how often Med Ed technically replaces them, but it's like probably every 25 to 30 years. But if it stops working, basically our system just doesn't work until it's replaced. But it doesn't blow up or anything like that, it just stops, so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want.
Yeah, the new transformers that they're using today are not the big round, it's just a small box.
Yeah, they're getting more efficient essentially.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any talk of water usage. Do these use water at all?
No.
Do solar panels use water at times?
The only time I can think of is there might be some sort of like, again, these are fixed tilts, so they're not going to move. Like under the like the tracker systems, there might be some sort of hydraulic sort of mechanism in the ball essentially that rotates on, but not on these fixed tilt systems.
That wouldn't be water, that would be oil.
Yeah. Well, for the transformers would be oil. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How tall are these poles? these posts?
that the solar panels would sit on.
Yeah.
The low end is going to be about 3 foot, and then on the high end, because they're going to be tilted at about 20%, on the high end, they're about 9 feet roughly.
Is there gonna be any water usage for this property? I mean, do you have utilities on this, other like, sewer, water, those type of things on here?
Just electric.
Just electric.
Do they have to be cleaned periodically to maintain efficiency?
Not in Pennsylvania. We just typically let it rain. That's more of a concept in like Arizona or Texas where it's a little bit sandier. But if it snows, you just let the snow melt off. You kind of just let the elements do their thing.
You've seen our pollen in the spring.
This year would have been a little rough just with the no rain, but
We have a number of these over the parking lot where I work, and they do a cleaning every other year, I believe.
Okay.
Just from like, I guess, general grime, I guess.
so yours, those are probably not tilted very much. They're probably relatively flat. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't know the angle, but I would say that they're not like an average roof type slant.
There are services. I mean, typically when we first install a system, we get a call pretty quickly about trying to have cleaning services, but that we just haven't spent the time. But I think it's something you could do, but I don't know if it would. If you did a cost benefit on it, I'm not sure if it would cover.
Where are the panels manufactured?
Yeah, good question. So it's not China. That's the big thing. As part of the August 2022 federal bill, the IRA, there was actually a big push for domestic panels to be made. So this project could have solar panels coming from the United States. It's probably 2 to 3 years out until you see pretty large scale of United States panels. Right now, if we were ordering panels tomorrow, they're coming typically from like Vietnam.
What's the environmental impact when these fail? What do you do with them?
Yeah, so the solar panels are warranted for 30 years through the manufacturer. It's not uncommon for one to break through like a rock or just failure pretty much. So there is a proper recycling process for them. So you can't just throw them in a landfill. But so there actually is recycling plants and procedures essentially to handle solar panels. The rest of it is pretty undestructible. I mean, the parts you really have is you have steel that's going to hold the panels up. You have the solar panels, you'll have like conduit and copper wire essentially, and then the inverters which convert the energy from DC to AC. All of those have a pretty robust recycling process. We're through an organization, or with an organization called SEIA, or the Solar Energy Industry Association. They have lots of material on how to properly recycle. I also do think that's going to be an industry that populates here in the next 20 years, just because solar panels are going to continue to magnify essentially across the.
How about resistance from, I'm thinking kids with rocks, bright target, but they're relatively resistant impact, stones, rocks, that kind of thing, or are they going to be like inspected periodically if they have to be replaced?
Yeah, so as far as like the inspection process or the maintenance on it, we do at least annual maintenances with boots on the ground essentially, but we also have the ability to do remote monitoring so we can actually see how the system's performing on a 15-minute level. So if, like, for example, let's say an inverter went down, like let's say that's like 3 to 5% of the array, we actually would get an alert that happened. So it'd be a little bit of both. I mean, it's not uncommon to fly a drone for like thermal imagery as well. That's another concept. I mean, again, I would probably say the most likely, we might have 1 or 2 broken panels a year through rocks, but I just had hail at my house that didn't damage panels, so they are pretty durable, but I would say bullet holes in rocks are probably the most likely things that damage panels.
The area between each row of panels is how much?
Don't quote me on this, but it's like 13 to 14 feet.
It's about 13.69 feet.
So you will take care of mowing in between them, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's our property, so we would comply with any landscaping.
Zoning?
Yep. Correct.
The whole thing is fenced.
That's correct.
Most of your wiring is underground, right?
Most of the wiring is actually going to be up above. So like when you go panel to panel, for example, that's all, we don't really have a great picture of it, but if you look at, so the panels again are going to be like a 20-degree slope. So there's a channel underneath the panels on the backside. it's all kind of, there's wire management, essentially shelves or conduits.
It's like conduit.
Yeah, so it all, basically one row will all go to the center part of it. That's typically where like the inverter would be placed at, so you'd have the wires go in there, then you have to do your home runs back to like the transformer. That's the part that's underground, but I'd probably tell you 90% of it's above ground in that channel.
Yeah, 'cause I'm just wondering about how that, because, some of those things can pick up a lot of noise, a lot of static, and a lot of, you know what I mean, if it's not shielded or anything.
Sorry, what are you concerned, like, would pick up?
No, I was just saying, some of the things like that they can bleed a little bit, and they are not shielded correctly, some of those.
It's concerned about cable TV reception on the.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so the home runs from the inverter back would all be PVC conduit encased, but as far as all the wires, it is PV wire. There actually is like outdoor rated wire for solar panel, because again, it's like a 30 to 40 year asset. That's all protected as well from the elements, because it's largely covered by the solar panels.
They sound relatively safe.
And there's a 75-foot buffer the whole way around the property line. So none of these will be even 75 feet.
If they are broken, that really doesn't really leak out like you think of, you know what I mean?
It's all inert material, correct? Inside?
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing to leak, there's no, it doesn't break down, it's inert material, it's cadmium.
Yeah, they're also in between two pieces of glass. You have glass on the top side and then on the back side. And then you have the blue looking color is what they call cell. There's components in that, but they're wedged in between two pieces of glass, basically.
Yeah, it's.
They have it in there.
It's something they just had to use, show.
Any other questions?
What's a string inverter versus a fixed inverter?
A fixed inverter?
Yeah, because the projects I've worked with, seen, they've had kind of an inverter that's on a concrete pad.
Mm-hmm.
You have a string inverter that's, I'm just curious what.
Yeah, do you mean central inverter? Is that what?
Maybe,
yeah. I'm not sure about.
These are larger projects where
Yeah.
they have inverters interspersed throughout, they're on concrete pads.
Yeah, I haven't heard the term fixed before, but so the string inverter basically, so like on utility scale projects, you're gonna have bigger inverters. It's all about trying to drive costs down essentially. So like if you go from most expensive to least expensive, a residential inverter is gonna be the most expensive, like on a per unit basis. And then you're gonna go into string inverters, which is next, which are typically for something like this. And then you have the bigger ones that are like, the sizes of cars basically is like the battery or the inverter. So string inverters, essentially, there's going to be like 25 inverters on this site. So essentially, it's going to be about 4% of the array.
Are they built in so they're built in the line that runs through the center of this?
Yeah, they typically would be in a somewhat parallel. So the string inverters typically, I would say 2 foot by 3 foot. Like that's roughly what you're looking at. That's mounted on a post, essentially behind the panels.
Is there a part of
They'll go along that, on the second page, or front page there, along that conduit line.
Yeah, I saw that. I
There
just
are
wondering
so
how
many
they.
panels that get connected to that,
Yeah.
string together out to the transformer.
Basically, there'd be an inverter probably every 1 to 2 rows.
But they're right, they're in a part, they're not separate apart from the array system.
No,
They're part of the array.
they would be mounted directly behind the panels on like the beam structure.
So we did go through, sorry, if there's any more questions, we did go through planning commission comments, York County comments, and engineer comments. We do have a couple engineering comments that are outstanding. One would be a final stormwater report from our engineer. So what we're here for tonight is look for a conditional approval, pending satisfying your engineer's comments, is what we're asking for tonight.
I would entertain a motion to grant council's approval to put in the solar array pending the final engineering plan for the stormwater management. Anything else?
This whole property is in New Freedom, not in the township?
Correct. On your motion there, we do have one waiver request. being underneath section 194.305.A.1 being phase 1 environmental site assessment. So this listed in one of your engineer's comments that we need to be a waiver asked for that. We have added that to the plans.
I'm sorry, what was the?
A waiver
I know,
request.
Let's do that separate.
Do the waiver request separate?
We should probably do that before
I
you
was
do
just
the
gonna say,
conditional
we've already
permit.
That's why I just want to make you aware in case you had a separate,
Yeah.
certain order you did it.
Did that come from the
That-
planning commission or zoning hearing board?
No, that's under your engineer's comments. Sorry, I'll find it here.
But the plan was recommended for approval from the planning commission.
Correct.
With that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
So explain to me again the waiver.
Waiver request for, what was section, phase 1 environmental.
Yeah, it's section 194-305.A.1. It's your engineer's comment number 40.
And I just
sorry.
asked if it was in any of the township, because in this little revisions box, it says like March 8th of 23 per township engineering, and then per New Freedom Borough Planning Commission, then per township, is that township? Or what is,
It should be, yeah, I saw it.
it all
Okay.
says
Yeah, I'll
township,
make sure that says borough, correct. I'll make that.
so all 4 of those should say borough.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
that's
Sorry.
why I was wondering, like, is something in the borough, in the township?
Yeah, nope, I will make that correction. You're right.
So do we amend the motion, or do we have a separate motion for that?
I think you should probably make a motion to act on the waiver first, because you shouldn't, you can't adopt the conditional approval before you adopt the waiver. Otherwise, they have to meet the requirement.
Do we have to undo our motion first then?
Withdraw the motion.
Or withdraw it second?
Thank you.
I'll move that we accept the waiver.
Second.
Any other questions about the waiver? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
This one says none, that's all, the waivers. On the one I have, but maybe you updated it. You have them there, I got you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is.
The old one doesn't, yeah, correct.
Okay, gotcha. So to make sure we didn't miss that.
So I'll move that we accept the plan pending fulfillment of the engineer's recommendations and in conjunction with the waiver we just passed.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. The full set you had, is that?
You can keep that. That was with the
No.
addressing some of the engineer's comments.
Okay.
As for what-
Do you want to wait for signatures then?
Well, we should just make sure the engineer's good, because there could be a minor change.
That's
that
fine,
we might say.
I'm good, that's,
We'll get you whenever he gets us our clean letter, we'll get you the final plan.
that works, thank you.
Proceed. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
I just have a quick question, like, so this was an allowed use and it went through planning and zoning and York County planning, correct?
Right, and our planning, yeah. Okay, resolution authorizing the submission of the DCNR circuit rider grant.
Motion that we approve.
Have a motion to approve. Second. Any discussion?
This talks about terms and conditions of the grant. And I only have this paper that we're voting on.
Right, this is just for me to make the application. You would still have to authorize, basically acceptance of the grant by signing the contract.
But it says, whereas the application package includes a document entitled Terms and Conditions of the Grant. So this is the application package?
No.
Let's go
No, this is
again.
the resolution page to submit the grant application.
So there's no terms and conditions of this grant that you've reviewed? that we're applying for?
Well, this is just what, allowing you to be
To
the
submit the grant.
go-between and submit the grant.
Right. Again, you still have the terms and conditions based on the contract, based on the grant contract if you're awarded. So council will have to review that at the time. This is just to make application.
But we
So
do
we're
not,
going from paying for a grant that we don't know what the terms are for before we apply for it? Like, how do we know that there's not gonna be extraneous terms on this grant? and
well, then we
filling out-
wouldn't sign it if there were terms that were disagreeable.
But aren't we approving for him to sign this?
We're approving for him to apply for the grant.
So isn't this a lot of waste of time if we don't know what the terms of the grant are?
Well, and we know the basic terms of the grant, that it's paying for decreasing salary for a rec director, and, you know, and we know that we're gonna be responsible for the benefits and jointly with Shrewsbury Township.
Well, that was another concern because the applicant grantee legal name is only New Freedom Borough.
Well,
This
because
is-
we're applying jointly.
The applicant, yeah. But
Where,
we have a partner letter from Shrewsbury Township to submit the grant application.
I don't think DCNR will care about that. Why wouldn't Shrewsbury
Well,
have?
actually, they do care about it because we couldn't submit the grant without that letter.
But this right here, this goes in detail how we are assuming everything on this grant, and on here on this, it says nothing about the township.
But don't they have to have
Right,
their own,
because-
they have to have their own motion on it, don't they?
No, we're the applicant.
We are, okay.
What
That's
happens
why-
if this grant has to be paid back, though? The only name on this grant is New Freedom Borough.
That's why we have an intergovernmental agreement that was approved by this council that outlines those stipulations.
Just to be clear, number 3 does say, the grant application electronic or authorization signed by the above official will become the applicant's grantee executed signature page for the grant agreement. So, once you sign the application, if you get a grant, that signs the contract. So just, that's what the document says.
So am I correct in this?
It does
Thank
say
you.
that would be, that's what number 3 says.
Then it would all come back to just New Freedom.
Well, I'm not so worried about that, because you have the partner agreement, but yes, you are, the New Freedom Borough would be.
But
But they
you're not,
still require, through that process, acceptance after award of that contract. Just because you're awarded does not guarantee acceptance by the party.
Andy, I'm just reading the
I know.
language it says.
Yeah, and you're correct, and there's nothing to stop us from dissolving the agreement
No.
and firing the rec director.
what do you mean there's nothing? How do you do that?
You don't have to accept, so here's the thing, if you get a grant, you're not gonna change the terms of the agreement, you either accept it or turn it back. So that's
How do you
really,
dissolve the agreement?
you
that's
both,
Which, with Shrewsbury Township?
Mhm.
There's,
both of you would
you
agree
both
to,
agree
Well,
to
I-
dissolve.
But what's the process?
you would go through the same process that you did to adopt it to unadopt it.
It's in the
Council,
intergovernmental agreement.
council would vote on it, and we would dissolve the agreement.
That's immediate, you could vote
It's
on
not
dissolve
immediate,
it.
you'd have to, you'd have to go through the process that's set forth in the agreement to get the notices unless you both agree, and in which case, you could both agree to do that by resolution or ordinance, however we adopted it, to dissolve.
I wonder if only one of the 2 municipalities wants to absolve it, what's that process?
I believe that is addressed in the agreement.
I thought it was, talks about splitting assets and what we, one thought, the other for this or that. If they contribute to something that was put in New Freedom.
Well, just like Davies point out, I'm very concerned for this.
Yeah.
Haven't read the grant. When you're partnering with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and not knowing what the requirements or could possibly even be, you're really hamstringing,
This has been done
Future.
countless times. I mean, the Marge Goodfellow grant for the park that we just put in was the same language. It's the same, this isn't unusual.
I would say this is because it seems to be New Freedom is assuming all the liabilities through this whole thing. The director is going to be on our payroll, we are going to house them. long-term liability, insurance. We're gonna be shouldering that, and this hasn't been turned out to the citizens. They're gonna have a new per capita tax. They haven't even been asked if they want this. And, you know, I think
It's not a per capita tax.
that's what it's been
No,
referred to as.
It's not. If
Well,
you
what
read the
what is it?
agreement, the
I
agreement-
absolutely read the agreement, thank you.
The agreement answers all the questions you just asked. It outlines all those stipulations. It's not a tax, it's a contribution based on the number of residents or per capita in New Freedom Borough. It is not a tax placed on the residents for recreation.
It is per capita. It is referred to as a per capita tax.
No, it is not. It is referred to as a per capita contribution.
Contribution, so if you want to call it a contribution, they are still having to reach into their pockets for something that you don't even know is going to work. That 5 years in, is their contribution going to increase because it's not sustainable? I mean, this was what, 20 years ago? The 5 municipalities together, that folded within 5 years. This is
It's
not,
not a
this,
fair comparison at all. That folded because they had their hands tied. This
Well-
is going to be, you know, basically they'll be able to run any program that they want to run. It's
where
not
is the
that-
revenue going to come to sustain this program and this rec director?
From day camps, from different programs that we're going to run. I mean, what,
But in the contract, it says that fees can or cannot be charged. There's not even saying that they're gonna be charged for these programs.
Well, I think that depends on what the program is.
and that's going to be dependent on what the rec commission decides they're going to charge for a program. Some programs may be free. A lot of programs won't be. There'll be some amount charged, just like we charge for tennis, just like we charge for other recreation activities.
Well, where was the business case that was laid out for this to justify, you know, a study done that this is gonna be self-sufficient and this is going to work and not be another burden on the
Because many
citizens?
municipalities, I mean, we get calls all the time, what can the kids do? We have nothing for the children to do in town. So this will give them the possibility of having things, and it's at a reduced rate. So it's a good grant. I mean, it's an ideal
Well, I don't think we
situation.
know what the grant is, and I think the solicitor backed me up on this, that we really don't by the terms that is in it, and how anybody up here can pass this when you haven't even been able to read the terms and conditions of the grant of what we're gonna be binded into, is reckless.
We don't have the grant written yet, right? We're just applying to get a grant.
This is the application process.
Application to write the grant.
It's to apply for the grant, and if you get the grant, there are a certain set of terms and conditions. It's issued to everyone from DC and all across the state.
This is
This
boilerplate.
this
It's not
different.
unusual.
It's not uncommon, and if you want to see them, I mean, you can certainly read them, they're probably on, are they online? I'm pretty sure they're online, but they have a standard set. Yeah. And you can't change them if you don't like them anyway.
You can't change it. It's for millions of
Well,
dollars.
we don't know what's in it.
But this basically just gives you the authorization to be the person in between us and the, what is it, and DCNR. Am I correct? That's the way I read it. That gives you the authorization to be the in-between person.
And applies retroactively to the date of this signing.
If you don't take any money, I mean, that's ultimately, you can say, thank you for the grant, but we're not going for it. So that's how
Is
you.
that understood though? If they award us the grant, can we not accept it?
Yes.
Yeah, you can turn
You
it
can
down.
always do that.
Where,
You're probably running a risk that that you're getting further grants. I mean,
Yeah, you're
I
not-
understand that, but I mean, just for the legal thing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always turn down a grant, you don't have to take it.
So then we're not,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Brendan?
You're good.
Where in the contract that was drawn up between Shrewsbury Township does it say that they are liable for 50% of all costs.
They're liable based on
50% or
per
more,
capita.
or whatever, whatever.
It's based on per capita.
Per capita.
It's in the contract.
So what happens, like if you don't, like if you, this is for 5 years, say in 2 years, it's not going, it has to close shop. You've taken this grant, does that grant have to be paid back? Who pays it back? Only New Freedom because our name's on here?
Well, it would have to be ineligible expenses that are charged by the state to say it wasn't applicable. So if you got eligible expenses and spent that money towards that, they're not gonna have to be paid back. And that's just a grant one-on-one.
You're asking though, if there's, what protection is there if the whole thing
The
falls
agreement,
apart?
the agreement
in
says
June?
what, I mean, the agreement says what it's all
Right,
about.
and that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, I think we went over.
This is a bad deal for the citizens of New Freedom.
In what respect?
And all the ones that I have been speaking of for the past 5 months that I've brought to the attention as well as tonight. We are being saddled with all the liability, the costs.
No, you're being saddled with your per capita share. It's an intergovernmental agreement. It's not, well, hopefully
Whose
it's different.
insurance are they on? Is the director on? Whose payroll is the director on? And where are they gonna be housed?
Well, first of all, the payroll is going to be split on a per capita basis. That's what the intergovernmental agreement says.
Well, your contribution is split on a per capita basis, and then
Right.
it goes back to each municipality, which is an enforceable contract.
Right.
That doesn't change. I mean, you have that protection that you have in the agreement, that you can go after Shrewsbury if they don't pass.
When were the citizens of New Freedom asked if they wanted to go into a partnership like this?
At every meeting, at every public meeting where this is on the agenda.
Outside of the meeting where 10 people attend, outside of that, how, less than 1% of the people, how, when?
I think if you're a representative form of government, the 7 members that are up here get a chance to vote, cast their vote on behalf of the citizens.
On our constituents, and yeah, absolutely. When were they asked about this?
Well, I can
Did
say
you
that
not ask
everybody
people?
who has a child
Because
in
I've
New
asked
Freedom is
people, and
loving
people
it.
want recreation. Brian's over there nodding. I mean, people want something for their children to do.
I am not against recreation, absolutely not. We have great programs that go on in our community. I am not knocking programs. I am knocking getting into a contract such as this where New Freedom is assuming all of the financial risk and liability, and I'm not seeing Shrewsbury Township's names on much of
We
anything.
are not assuming all of the risk. It is a joint partnership, and DCNR required us to be partnered with somebody. They know we have a joint partnership. Somebody has to take the lead to do the application. That's all we're doing with this resolution, is taking the lead, making the application, backed up by an intergovernmental agreement with Shrewsbury Township.
Can I ask you something? Why can't we just add Shrewsbury Township so that these kids?
I'm
Because
sorry?
they're not the applicant,
They're not the applicant at
You only
all.
can have one of the applicants
Oh,
on
you
there.
can only
Yeah,
have one,
that's-
okay.
That's just their rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't make
Erica?
sense.
Could I ask, did you live here when Marge Goodfellow was alive?
I did.
No, I'm asking Ms. Martin.
Oh.
You did.
I don't know.
No.
I mean,
No.
Like during the summer when the kids were out of school, every single day, there was an activity for the kids. Every day of the summer, Monday through Friday.
I'm gonna call her that.
Little League.
She is like the director that we don't have now. True? I mean, the people who lived here then, there's something for those kids to do every single day.
I have to agree.
This contract isn't the way to get back to that, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of approving the resolution and applying for the grant, which gives us a rec director for 4 years at a reduced cost, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
My vote is aye, motion carries. Consider approval of payment. It's a final in amount of $16,242.58 to Liberty Restoration for the roof restoration on the Public Works building.
Make a motion for the approval of the payment as listed.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Everything's done, right?
Done and inspected.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. Okay. Senior Center lease. Nobody got the Senior Center. Okay, Andy put together this little chart showing what's happening. Basically, the current monthly rate is 39 cents a square foot. The new monthly rate is 50 cents a square foot, which represents approximately half of what the commercial rate is. The increase is 5%. The requested monthly, I'm sorry?
They requested an increase of 5
Rather than requested increase. And so the monthly rent would be $16.54 as opposed to the $15.75, which is the current. So it's a $384 difference.
I think it's important to note and just remind everybody that either did know or maybe forgot, like myself. This is basically the Freedom's contribution to the senior center. There is no, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no additional funds that come from New Freedom as a donation back to them. It's just in the form of reduced rent with their space at the community center.
Do we still give them $200? It used to be $200.
I haven't seen that come before us in a long time.
2020.
Yeah.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was
Because
just to get
people
it back on.
complained that we only gave 200 and the other communities gave.
I mean, that very well may be true, but I'm saying, like, just as a reminder to everybody that this is essentially a monetary contribution to the senior center of Southern York County.
What does the Lions,
I'm sorry.
what does the Lions Club pay per square foot?
They really.
Yeah, their lease agreement says that they make a contribution in lieu of rent.
It's just a donation.
Over the years, they've put $40,000 plus into that building.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. Plus, I think they donated the playground to the borough. That used to be the Lions playground.
I think
Correct?
it still has one of the structures there. I think it has a Lions emblem.
Well, I think they did the buildings and they contributed to the equipment down there.
Before my time.
Well, no, we were here when they put the equipment up and they donated, I think, 5,000? Am I right, Andrew? Do you remember? Was that before you? It was. Yeah. They put a lot of money into the equipment down there. They put a lot of money back into
the only comment I would make is it's a big chunk of square footage, and it's it probably what they're paying covers the heat and the lights. But they are nonprofit.
Do they donate back to the community? I know like there's services there that don't cost, but like you're saying that the Lions Club has funded
the senior center doesn't donate back to the community, but they provide an invaluable service to the citizens.
Do we know what the other municipalities give back to them?
So they're currently, so in full disclosure, my dad is on the board of the senior center. The new director there is gathering information on members and where they're from. And then their plan is to go back to other municipalities and then ask for either funding, because some of them donate or contribute zero. But they're currently compiling all that information.
Yeah, because this
Then
is
the-
not New Freedom Borough
Correct.
Senior Center.
They represent, I think you told me 13 municipalities in the area.
So how can you make a decision on how much New Freedom should give back, the people of New Freedom should give back, when you don't know what the other communities are giving back? Why should we handle the whole burden?
No, I mean, we're not handling the whole burden, but I understand your question.
Yeah, I mean, we know, I think we know for a fact that they're giving more than $200, because that's what we were giving. And I remember that that other municipalities were giving somewhere in the $350 to $500 range. So this, the 384.
A lot more than that.
Yeah, some of them a lot more than that. So, I mean, the 384, if you're going to just count it as a donation to the running of the senior center, 384 is certainly within the range. I think we're covering, the 1654 requested monthly rent covers the heat and the lights and probably a little bit of the cleaning and whatnot. So I think it's,
Someone that's been here for a while, Dennis. Correct me if I'm not wrong. I have a contract from back 19 or 20 where their rent was $2,000. Does anybody recall that? Do you recall seeing any lease for that?
The copy that I have that is the most recent, which expired at the end of 22, which council extended, was the 1575.
Then they must have lowered it because it had been 2,000 and people complained, especially the community center, and they were ready to move.
Yeah, I don't know, but the base rate is one, and then there was a utility charge, which both of those together equal to 1575.
I think that the 2,000 might have been more square footage. Because then they had the blue room.
Yes, they used that, the room that now has the refrigerator.
Right, yeah, so, and there was some other room too that they,
Yeah.
so I think this is comparable to what they were at.
Who came up with the $2,038 charge them?
That was based on half of the rate that was being charged to Taste Locations because they're a nonprofit. So originally, when it was $1, and this was 50 cents.
But you and Andy ran these numbers and you came up with $2,038, correct?
Well, that's half of 4076.
And at that time, that was figured of what needed to come in to cover the costs. If this is accepted, this is gonna be another approximately $4,700 not being able to go in the coffers of the community center. You sign on that rec director, that $200 a month is going away because there's gonna be no charge for that use, is my understanding. That's another $2,400. So now you're up just for these two things, another $7,000 that will not come in, that the taxpayer is gonna be picking up, as well as all of the overage that isn't gonna come in either. I don't understand why these negotiations are allowed to go on like this. This isn't, let's make a deal. They're given a lease. Both of our lease holders are given a lease. When people go out to rent things, you're given a lease, and that's what it is. This negotiation back and forth and people rewriting it, it needs to be what it needs to be because it needs to be covered.
I agree with most of what you said, but leases are, let's make a deal. You go in, you say, I want this amount of square footage. Well, can you take this? I mean, that's really kind of what, that's what this is. It's a negotiation.
I wanted a professional in here early this year. That got tabled and delayed. So if you accurately came up with that number, that's what it needs to be, which, lowering it after the fact,
I'm
I don't
just
see how it's
presenting
beneficial.
what they requested after the lease that council approved was sent to
council
Which
to
they
approve the
had.
lease, and that's what should stand.
Which they had a chance to review since the fall.
True statement. I would entertain a motion. Okay.
I can do it. Well, so we did give them a glimpse of this 2038, and they said, can you do better?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, I've negotiated leases for years and years. It was always kind of a back and forth, and
Yeah. Well, the more you negotiate, the more that comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. That's
Well,
gotta come
I
from
mean,
somewhere.
some of
It's
our
coming from somewhere.
taxpayers are using the senior center services too, so I mean, you know, it's,
Yeah, I guess they pay to use the senior center, right? There's charges there when they use it.
Can I throw something out there? What if you stuck to the original lease and then decided on whatever your council's contribution would be?
well, yeah, that would be one way to do it. I mean,
you're amusement taxing us, aren't you?
I feel like coming to these meetings, it's not all equal across the board. Like, I get Erica's point, and I agree with Erica. I mean, I personally obviously don't use the senior center, I donate a lot of money to them, but I feel like if you came up with a probable figure that would be covering the costs, and they're still getting a reduced rate because they're a nonprofit, we all have nonprofit rates.
yeah.
I am on the board that things should not
So
Yeah,
what
be
you're
this
saying,
combative. I feel like we need to stick to a little bit of authority.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we leave the lease as it was presented to them, and then we can make a choice whether or not we want to make a donation.
so what you're saying is it's 50 cents a square foot because they're a nonprofit.
Right.
If they
Right.
moved out and we put a profit in there, it would be $1.
$1.
So they're already
Then Davey
getting,
would tell you we're getting close to having too much for profit in there.
but we're
yes.
already giving them, you're already had chosen
already
to
have
give them
discounted.
We've
half.
already charged the taxes a little bit.
Right, we've already discounted the lease, so I think, yeah, I think if it were entirely up to me, I would leave the lease the way it is.
With
Yeah.
what dollar figure?
I'm sorry?
With what dollar figure, the 2038, or?
No,
I'm sorry, with the-
at
with
the
this-
new monthly rate of 2038,
Yeah,
and then we could vote whether or not we want to give them a donation to help them with their, that would.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but I feel like it's the same as the amusement tax, we're taking and giving back, why have that give and take?
Why don't we just use that figure, 2038, and do it that way?
I mean, that's what Andy's saying.
Well, I have to be honest with you, it's, a lot of the other municipalities know what we give, and they look at us, how come you're only giving them $200?
But you're giving them 2,000.
Well, but they don't see that when they get the
Well, then
reports.
somebody has to explain it, that
So
they're getting
that's
it for half
Well,
price.
kind of like the idea of charge, give back.
Yeah,
But the give back is at your discretion and can be changed a lot easier than a monthly, or than a yearly, 2-year. I don't know how long the lease contracts are for, but.
Well, that's true, you have a new council come in, they could go gangbusters and.
I got a question for Ryan. So what you're gonna be looking at are what the other municipalities are paying.
I'm not, the senior
What
center.
the board's gonna look into.
Correct.
So it's not just us doing all this stuff, there's other people involved in this, right?
Others that are making contributions
Yes.
to the senior center, yes.
I mean,
that
if
is
we
correct.
had a feel for that,
So that's, in the coming months, they are planning on going around to all of the all of the communities, boroughs and townships, and presenting information like that to all of them. in
Ryan,
advance.
respectively, they already had 6 months.
yeah.
They requested an extension of 6
Right.
months. They should have gotten that information and brought it to council in the last.
And we did ask them to come tonight, Andrew and I asked them to come tonight to present this, so that we would have somebody here to ask questions of. So
again, there's New Freedom's contribution. They had the old rate for the last 6 months.
yeah, so I think that
That's
we,
a good point.
what I would, again, in my opinion, and I agree with Erica, I think we should leave it at the 2038, the 50 cents per square foot, and then let them come to us and ask for a donation, and then we could base that on what other municipalities are doing, but then they're still paying a very heavily discounted rate for the community center.
And since your dad's on the board, I don't know, you could share with him that we're looking at donating back, possibly some during the year.
All right, so we need to take no action. We're going with the approved list. Moving on. Solicitor's report.
Andy had sent me, he and Wade went through some requests for updating the consolidated code, the ordinances. He had sent me a couple questions. I'm working on those, and we're going to turn those around here in the next week or so. Otherwise, it's been pretty quiet.
Okay. Do you have anything for the manager's report?
Other than what's on the agenda, no. I do have a report from the radar speed signs. You remember a couple months ago, there were residents concerned about the speed on Leader Road. So once the radar speed signs were made available from Constitution Avenue, Public Works relocated those to Leader Road to catch motorists traveling west and east from the borough. So you can see the two charts there. Traveling east, the average speed is 32 miles an hour. Posted speed is 30 miles an hour. And traveling west, the average speed is 28 miles an hour. So on the 85th percentile speed, it is a little higher than the posted speed limit, but really below the threshold that the police department would need to enforce. So yeah, you do have some outliers there.
But you look at the maximum speeds,
Right.
and some of those are doozies.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Now that's the high for the day. So that's one vehicle on that.
Which could be a police car. That happened on Constitution.
Yeah, now, again, you really try to look at the average speed and the 85th percentile speed. So we'll leave the radar speed signs out at this point, unless we get additional requests for movement and installation.
I did ask, since you brought that up, I did ask the police department, is this something different? I did ask the police department, after I saw this, just kind of keep an eye out in that area, because I also have gotten a lot of complaints. If we have some extra hours that New Freedom needs to burn off, there's a good place for you. Just, yes, burn. Just go out there and do some paperwork, let your lights on.
Well, they've been, I've seen them in town.
Oh, yeah, I have too, but I really think their machines are busted, their radar, I think they've got one left.
Oh, wow.
And they can't get parts for it, so they are now kind of depending on us. Shrewsbury, we went together, Shrewsbury has the same configuration that we do. But I did go ahead and ask them to kind of keep an eye out there if they can.
Why can't we just park a car there? Other people do.
Sorry?
Just park an empty police car there and get it when you need it.
I've asked about that, I can't
I
really.
mean, other than that, I like to do that.
They don't like to do that without somebody being in it, because people find out real quick, unless you're gonna put them a blow-up doll, and, they don't.
Run the risk of police car being vandalized.
Yeah.
I mean, be a deterrent. I mean, what we're seeing now is what's an actual, we're up to 57 miles an hour and stuff like that. If there was a car sitting there on a regular basis, I'm sure that it would cut down a little bit.
And that's what I asked them to do. Even if they know, they can see, did you send this to Chief?
No.
Would you
No,
please?
I did talk to him about it last week, though. and-
Okay, because I talked to Darrell about it. He said, please send it to Chief.
Okay, yeah, I did have a meeting with Chief last week and discussed it again. The concern there is being able to enforce even at that 85th.
Well, I think next year
But you
we'll be
get the
able
outliers.
to enforce a little bit more. I think we'll have more time to mail. But, you know, that's what they're there for. They tell us, you know, if you need us to look here, look there, we'll be happy to do it. How many times did they go over to Glen Rock on, what's the street where the trucks aren't supposed to? Church Street, you know, they're over there, you know, checking for trucks. Now they've got a police officer that, this could go into police report, but they have a police officer that can do inspections, truck inspections. And they've been utilizing him for that. You know, he was
Let's let
completely-
Andy finish.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Is there any other questions on the reports, or any other questions? Again, most of the month was spent on things on the agenda and normal tasks.
Where are you into the zoning too?
No.
With your report? No? Okay.
Comes up a little bit here. President's report, I just have a couple of things. There's of course been like just tons of conversation about the refuse contract and bidding and negotiating and whatnot. So I put together this little training. This is bidding for items such as the refuse contract. Everybody should realize that it's required by PA Borough Code. So the numbers for this year, and they change every year, but this year, if it's 12.2, there's no bid required. From 12.2 to 22.5, you have to get 3 written or phone quotes. And over 22.5, such as our refuse contract, it has to be a public bid. So the process is you prepare specs and request for a quote. You can have a pre-bidders conference where you find out what people are willing to bid. Like for instance, in our pre-bidders conference for the trash contract, we found out that we had to have toters. Wasn't an option. One company said that they weren't going to bid twice a week. Then you advertise and publish the bid request so anyone can bid it. Then we receive the sealed bids, we open the sealed bids, and the lowest responsible bid wins. There is no negotiation. As long as they can come up with a performance bond, the licenses, and other required documentation, then we formally award the contract at council, which is what we did. So by law, if it's awarded to other than the lowest bidder, the contract is void. So regarding our refuse contract, the totes were required by all bidders. 2 vendors bid, 1 bidder refused to bid twice a week. The 2 times a week was 39% higher in cost for the first year and ended up being almost double by the end of the contract. The bid cost is paid by all the residents, so I might only have 1 bag of trash a week, but I would pay for the 2 times a week if they were selected for 2 times a week, and we would all have to pay and get 2 times a week whether we wanted it or not. There would be no option. So studies have shown, and I didn't bring this citing, I should have. I could bring that to you if you like, or send it to you by email. The studies show that small municipalities save about 25 to 35% by contracting their refuse out. This is why Shrewsbury Township, Shrewsbury Borough, Glen Rock, Stewartstown, etc., all contract out their refuse. It's less expensive for the citizens. Hanover is the only close by municipality that has in-house collection. They also have 7,800 houses and 3,100 businesses, which we're not anywhere close to that, even if you added our municipalities together. Their residential cost is $70.50 per quarter for a 90-gallon picked up once a week, because that's all they have time to do with the amount of area they cover. Just as an interesting side note, and the number just kind of popped out at me, our trash service went up by 11%. So did our police service. Everything is going up. The tipping fees went up, and I realize it's our trash service. We're paying the same thing everybody else is paying. So neither of which could be changed by council. We're paying the police budget, we're paying the trash. And we did try to keep our tax increase low, and we made the best refuse choice for the majority of citizens. So that's just a little blurb so that everybody at least is on the same page.
Could we put this someplace where people can see it?
Sure, I will make a motion that we put it in the newsletter next month. Thank you.
I will make a motion that, even though I can't, that we put it in, on the website also.
Yeah, I agree. So,
I'll second both motions.
okay. All in favor of putting it in the newsletter and on the website, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
My vote is aye.
it's not accurate.
What's not accurate?
When we did our contract in October, that was the first time that Penn Waste was in front of us, that we saw anything at all, and told we had to vote that night. And it had to be the way
That's
that
not a
it
true
was.
statement. We were ratifying the contract. They had already won the bid.
I saw nothing until October.
You mean when you made the motion to accept the contract?
Well, the two poor choices that were before me of one a week that we had or twice a week, yes. That was the first time I had been seeing that.
Well, it was
August,
a sealed bid. The bid was open. They were the low bid. We had no choice. That's the purpose of this training, is so that you understand and everybody understands that we don't have a choice. When we open a sealed bid, we can either say, no, we don't want any contract, or we can take the lowest bid. Those are the only choices.
I'm speaking to say, yes, there is a choice, and there was a choice, because Glen Rock had their trash contract in August, a couple months before us. They kept twice a week. They do not have this automation. Shrewsbury Borough, their contract is up this December. In February, they had both trash contractors, Republic and Penn Waste, at their borough meeting before their council, talking about what the specifications were gonna be. That council asked both of them point blank, do we have to go to automated? Penn Waste response was no, but we prefer it. So I was told we have to go this way, so I don't understand how Glen Rock Borough did
Shrewsbury Borough is
theirs.
still going to have toters.
They do not have to. I don't know what they're gonna decide. My point is, I didn't see Penn Waste before me until October, when I was told I had to vote. Shrewsbury Borough, they're not voting until the end of the year, and they had Penn Waste in February before that council to talk about the contract. And 2 months before we even did our contract, Glen Rock did theirs and kept everything that we gave up. So I'm just saying that there's other information out there, and had I known the information that I found out this year, October, I would have made a completely different choice and insisted. I didn't know it was an option. I probably could have insisted that we ask for an extension to look into this further, but I was told when I asked, let's reach out to the citizens and see what they want once or twice a week, I was told, no, we can't do that. We have to vote tonight because I should have ordered the toters 2 months ago, and we're behind the ball already. So,
Well, we didn't
took
vote
the worst of the
to
sour
not have
pills.
twice a week because of that. We voted because of the cost. I don't know why you voted
No.
for it, but that's not why
No.
I voted for it.
I wanted to ask the citizens, and I was told, no, we had to vote on it that night in October. That's exactly what I was told.
Wasn't that because
It was
once the
already-
bid's in, you've got to vote on it, right?
I believe he said
You
that.
can't start, you
If you
can't
want-
negotiate then. I don't know how they can bring a company in and negotiate a contract like that in
But these specs-
February before they vote on it in September.
They're asking what they want. These specs that we were given in October were created by our solicitor and Andrew, is that correct?
Yes, based on the feedback in order to make a competitive bid between the only two that were going to bid
Well,
on the services. But those documents came from what was already in place too, with updates to make them compliant.
Well, the sour pill that had to be taken here, the two boroughs on each side of us have been told they don't have to do that, and I don't understand why.
I don't either, because they deal with, Penn Waste deals with Shrewsbury Township, and they got the same deal we did.
Shrewsbury Borough is not done yet. I mean, they.
No, I know
just
they
reviewed
are.
Penn Waste.
Shrewsbury Township had to go with.
I know, I'm just
And
saying.
they, a while ago, the only difference is, and we could look into this, maybe, while we're talking about this, most of the other municipalities can buy orange bags that are additional to if you need it. Some people are saying, I can't fit them all in once a week. Well, you can buy orange bags. Are you aware of this, Andrew? That some municipalities do that through Penn Waste?
Yeah, I believe Penn Waste can schedule that.
Yeah, I forget how much it is for like, I don't know, 26 bags or something. And maybe if it's a problem, you know, with a single collection day, they can do that. We, you know, I think Penn Waste went out of their way and said, okay, these are too big, if you don't need it, we'll supply you with smaller ones. You know, it's a godsend to some of the older people, single mothers up at, you know, the townhouses.
Well,
I don't know what else we could have done.
exactly. And
Or
this
Information prior to that night, being involved in the information.
I believe this council agreed to several meetings before this was all voted, what stipulations we wanted in there, how we wanted it bid.
Because I was being told it had to go to automated.
Specifications to bid. Again,
I was told it had to be automated. That is what I was told. We were all told that.
My minutes, and I wish I had brought them with me. My minutes said that Erica made a motion to approve the specifications for bidding the trash contract.
And I understand that
That was
all
in
of you like to
October.
point that out, and
That was
everybody
in
knows
October.
it.
That was in
Everybody knows it.
October.
And you know what? I just stated tonight what I found out after the fact, and had I known what I know now then, I absolutely would have not done that. I would have stood on my head and insisted we get a minimum, a 6-month extension to look into this further, because paying for more for less of what you're getting is just a raw deal all the way around. And then these big, huge toters, and now we find out that there was little ones when there could have been, it was just a mess all the way around. I was new this last year. I'm trying to do the best I can, and tell you what, next contract coming around, if I'm still up here, it'll be completely different.
Maybe.
I was educated this time. I made the best choice that I could for that night.
If you were educated, you would know that a 6-month extension is legal.
And that aside, I mean, they have half the trash pickup that we do. They do have it twice a week. I don't know when their contract runs out, but their bag limit is, their bag limit is
August.
half, their bag limit is half what ours is.
They did their contract August of '22. We did ours in October. They kept everything we gave up.
We're allowed, we have twice the pickup that they do. They have a limit of 4 bags, but no more than 65 gallons. So you're not comparing apples
They
to
were gonna
apples.
go with the automatic pickup.
I don't know, but every time, we're 6 months into this contract, and every time I look out the window when they're there, there's still somebody getting out and throwing it on the back. There's no automation.
And they've
That's what they're
explained
moving
that.
towards.
Moving
65.
towards.
They have, what they have, 2 trucks
65.
now?
So we didn't
65
have to do it
gallons.
this time around then. We could have kept what we had, but. it's
We
water
can't
under the
get,
bridge.
hey,
No, we couldn't
How
have
can we
kept
get
what we
out
had.
of that?
we can't get a
All
fire
right.
truck. We can't get a fire truck. It's gonna take us 2 years. We got an ambulance that needs a new cab. We can't get it for a year. We're using Glen Rock's ambulance, because of shortages and not being able to get equipment.
Can I ask one question? Like, what was done in October was just a formality, correct? Like,
Didn't we vote on it in October?
it was voted on, but it was really just a formality, because you, by law, have to accept the lowest bid.
Correct.
So the vote in October was just a formality of saying, this was the lowest bid, this is who we're going with,
Was it
correct?
November? It was October.
It was October. We could have had Penn Waste in January, February, March, April, May, not October. Like, you
But
know.
when it came in
we got no-
October, it was just to say, thank you for accepting the lowest bid.
Yeah. Bend over the barrel, take it.
Explain.
It's great. Yep.
Okay. Mr. Mayor has asked for an executive session, so we're going to adjourn into, or not adjourn, but,
Can't we do that at the end?
no, I'm gonna do it now.
Because that's what he asked for.
When are you guys gonna talk about rec?
I'm sorry?
When are you going to get to rec? Like, on the.
I'm sorry.
If you want to wait on this, she's been sitting here.
Well, why don't we do, you want to do rec?
Why do you rec now?
Yeah, let's do rec, so that Mary Ann's been
There's
very
not going to be
patient.
any action after our executive sessions.
All right, I'm sorry.
I know, I appreciate it.
No, it's okay, we're okay.
Okay, so
Brian?
I'm still,
Alright, ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, the last meeting was June 1st. Just a couple items of note. Lisa Zapak has submitted her resignation, and that was approved by the Rec Commission. Larry O'Brien, Scoutmaster of Troop 24, spoke about his program that's going to be happening on August 5th into August 6th. That's going to be a community-wide camp out, open to anybody in the area. I did have one quick question. The porta pots, we agreed to finalize that number like a week or two ahead of time, correct? Is it about the number that we're going to have in the park?
Yeah, there's two there
Yes.
currently now.
Yeah, okay.
I heard there was supposed to be a third that put up by the tennis courts, which, where it always was. That was the one we've always paid for.
No, there's one down by the old bathrooms and there's one by the parking lot. Last year, there was only one by the bathroom, and there was a request made, I believe it was
Yeah,
you,
that was
to put another one down there by the playground, which
The
we
one
did.
we always paid for was by the tennis courts, and it was there last year. This is the first year that there wasn't one there.
There were only two there last year.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I only remember two last year, but didn't spend that much time by the court.
Tennis next to
I thought there was one there.
Okay.
We might have to, purchase one for that event though, because we said there wouldn't be three available. I'll talk to Larry O'Brien. Because I thought that the third one was being.
Well, they do have the one by the old bathroom, which is going to be pretty centrally located to
Where they're
most
gonna
of
be.
the
I'll
events.
just see if he thinks we need two or three.
Well, let's wait and see what the registration is. If it's going to be a lot, then
Yeah.
certainly warranted, but if it's going to be low, then it may not be necessary.
Okay.
Farmers market, again, tabled until next year. I did mean to ask, did anybody contact you guys? What was her name? Asa?
She didn't come to the meeting.
Isa?
Isa.
Isa. I gave her, I think Rick's number.
And what was she contacting us about?
Duke's partner at Freedom Fitness.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, then maybe not. I can stop in and see if maybe she just dropped the idea. She was looking to do like a craft fair type thing
Flea
on,
market.
Tables.
yeah, on Saturday mornings, and it said that you guys already had the pickleball program going.
But she was
Well, I
also
did
talking
want to
about,
add that, we are revisiting, yoga in the park.
Okay,
So we're talking to Nicole Montanarelli about doing that. She can do it monthly, so we're looking
excellent.
into doing that.
Okay.
Ryan, I didn't think about this at the meeting last month. Is there any reason they can't contact Rose? Did they want to do this every week?
No, she said once a month.
Yeah, I
thought she was gonna
Why
contact
doesn't
Rose
she
after we
look
got
into join in with Rose Fire, because they have a flea market and chicken barbecue and beef barbecue once a month?
That's all right. I'll stop over at Freedom Fitness and see if she's in and talk to her and see if she just dropped the idea or where she's at with it.
Well, let her know that
What?
she maybe want to talk to
Okay.
the fire department.
I'll stop in and talk to her. youth tennis program started May 30th with 30 tennis players signed up. Program will be running 6 weeks, Tuesday and Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 10 to 11 a.m. Adult tennis started on the 27th of May. It was brought up about the resurfacing of the tennis courts. That's going to get wrapped up into the site development plan that we talked about earlier in the meeting.
How hard are they, is there any problem, or
They're
safety
really in
issues?
bad shape.
I'm sorry?
Whoever laid the surface did not do it right. And I thought it was like in 2000, but they are, like, you could go out there right now and peel the surface off the courts. There's little cracks all over every inch of the courts.
It does, there is a lot of cracks, but it just seems like normal wear and tear, and I believe it was mentioned that everything is out of warranty, correct?
No, it's not normal wear and tear. There's something wrong with that surface.
Is there a different surface that you use or they use over at the school?
I've never seen a court do what this court is doing. And it looks like if you took a clay pot and dropped it on the ground and the broken piece, that's what it looks like. And I mean, I swear I could go over there and just peel the paint off the court.
Do you think there's a water issue underneath the court?
I don't know. I've never seen a court do this.
It doesn't have to do with the surface, it has to do with the subsurface.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
and
Have
the
you looked
material.
at it, Andrew? Andy? Have you looked at it?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I'm just asking, like, if you physically saw it.
Yes, yeah, and it doesn't have to do with the surface, it has to do with the subsurface that was installed.
Why not they really dug that out and put
Well,
stone and
But
crushed
again,
it?
it's the difference between using reclaimed asphalt or reclaimed material
Oh.
as compared to using virgin material,
Oh.
and how that surface adheres to the subsurface.
Oh, wow.
Who okayed that?
Well, it would have been part of the bid spec that went out when that improvement was done.
I've never seen a court do it that way.
Yeah. But what I was asking though, is there a safety issue at this point, or?
I don't think so. I don't think there's a trip and fall hazard. I will look for that, but I don't think so, but I'll pay attention to that.
Yeah, I was down, didn't see any trip and fall,
No.
divots or.
Yeah, I don't think, I can't imagine that would happen, but I pay attention to that stuff, so.
Oh, there is a hole?
There's a hole, right? I saw one.
There is a hole, but
Yes.
I don't think that's been
It almost seems like it's hollow underneath, like there's a, that's
there's,
why I wondered.
there's something very wrong with what we're
Yeah,
having,
something,
this
yeah.
course being put in.
Probably what Andy said with the subsurface.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Pickleball, again, had 32 participants in May, netting $370. The parade, it's been mentioned before, still looking for applicants. Larry O'Brien has committed the Boy Scouts to being available for the color guard. Do you have all the judges now?
No, I still have to get in touch
okay.
with Lindsay and all
Okay.
that, but
Okay.
yeah.
And
And then I'm hoping the borough can participate as well, like they did last year.
and I did have one question about the route. You're going to be turning left onto Front Street? Or going up to Broad
Down Main
Street?
Street, down Rudders, up Broad.
So it is going to be Broad Street?
And then end
Okay.
up at,
Okay.
the police
It's a
station.
better street.
So it's like it was every year.
Yeah, so, yeah, same as before.
Same as
Okay.
before, it's always the same. way,
Excellent.
yeah.
All right, August 19th will be the final concert. I'm sorry, September 20th, August 19th will be the concert. September 23rd will be the karaoke concert.
Right.
And that was the end of the report.
And I talked to, I talked to, the senior center today to see if they wanted to do the food.
Okay.
So,
Did
yeah,
you-
she's gonna get back to me about that.
Okay, excellent.
So, and then one thing that I want to address is the Sesquicentennial Committee comment / complaint, that when I walked in tonight. We were never asked for any help, and one thing that we were asked to help was to use our sound system, which we gladly allowed them to use the sound system for the parade. With respects to the comments, I would have appreciated if they would have privately come to us, to our meeting, instead of publicly saying what they said here, so that Rich could, you know, say what he said, explain what he said, defend what he said, you know, and the only email I have is that we don't have use for pickleball that day, and he said, thank you for letting me know. So,
Marianne, with all due respect though, he was making his comments publicly.
I know, but I think it should have come to us and let him defend himself or apologize for it.
But that's what I'm saying, he was making his comments publicly numerous times about the committees and the events, so why shouldn't they make their...
Two wrongs don't make a right, I guess we'll go back to that adage. But I would have rather him, like, I'm gonna go to him and say, did you say this stuff, what the heck are you thinking? But, you know, I would have appreciated it him being able to defend himself versus, or what context, or, I don't know who he said it to, I don't know, you know, I don't know the context of what it was said, I don't know how it was said, I mean, I don't know anything, and I think he should have the right to defend himself.
I certainly think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and then, well, I'll leave out the last part.
I have a question. A little over a year ago, there was a sunshade, I believe it was requested on the playground by the rec commission. Did that ever come through? Did it ever?
What was?
Where the moms that sat with their young children, it was like one of those triangle kind of sunshade type, do you remember that? It was about a year ago, February, March of last year, was requested. I just didn't know if that had been purchased, followed through, looked
There you
at.
go.
So it was?
Just got it at the Pete, no, just picked it up PSAB,
Why
I
don't we
believe they're,
I don't think so.
I remember it being
Yeah.
discussed, but not outside of.
And I don't think it's been.
No,
brought
we
up
talked
since.
about it.
Andrew was
Yeah,
gonna look into
side
it,
of
I
that.
didn't know if it ever, I missed it or something.
That'd be a nice
yeah, they're involved with, I keep thinking, forgetting. Coastal.
We get
Without
a motion for a vote or anything?
Yeah.
You would need
Or
to
do you
decide
wanna
what
put-
area you wanna cover.
Okay.
Because I can tell you these get extremely expensive quick.
Okay.
On a similar project,
Now, is that something that might be available for
They have it at
grant
Home
money?
Depot.
Well, we could put it
you
in.
can't use those.
You can't use those?
No, they have,
A separate,
What seating is around there for those moms?
This,
Around the playground area?
there's a whole booklet right there too.
I think
There's several benches.
Seating around the
There's
playground.
benches
Yeah,
around where
they
there's
sit.
nice. There's nice.
It's all
benches,
seated,
but-
the other one.
No, I mean, do we have like a picnic tables there or something, park benches?